dirty and frustrated girl looks up at a boy who is watching her. Shino Uezaki has fallen into a gutter and tells the boy to stop staring while he realizes she is a famous beauty from his school. The boy struggles to find words in response to her shouting. He points out that it is impossible not to look because her foot is stuck perfectly in the drain. Shino yells that she didn't fall in on purpose. Shino complains about smelling like a sewer before her upcoming work shift, leading the boy to ask when her job starts. She explains that she starts at 5 and can't make it home in time since it's an hour away. The boy agrees that her plan won't work. The boy invites her to his place to use the shower. Shino quickly accepts the offer and thanks him. They go to his apartment building nearby. The boy reflects on his classmate Shino, feeling like she comes from a completely different world. He notes that she is a school celebrity who sits behind him in class, though they have never talked. He paces his room thinking that as a loner otaku, she only agreed to come over because she was desperate. Shino takes a shower in the boy's house while he panics over the unexpected turn of events. Shino finishes her shower and opens the door to say she feels great, which startles the boy. Shino is grateful for the clean clothes, and Fujiwara gives her a paper bag to hold her dirty ones. Shino thinks the bag is a great idea while Fujiwara suggests she take her things to an express cleaner and tells her it is time to leave. Shino gets annoyed and asks why he is suddenly trying to get rid of her. She assumes he is worried about his parents coming home and finding a girl in his room. Shino continues to tease him, believing she has figured out the reason he is trying to rush her out. Fujiwara explains that his parents are actually working overseas and he lives all by himself. Shino realizes he lives alone and immediately suggests he has adult magazines hidden somewhere, which catches him off guard. She begins searching the floor for a secret stash, while Fujiwara tells her to stop being an idiot. Shino ignores him and starts making cow sounds while bouncing around as Fujiwara insists he only has regular manga and orders her to get out. Fujiwara is flustered and confused by her cow impressions. Shino finally leaves the apartment while telling him to stay quiet, and Fujiwara slides down to the floor in exhaustion once the door is locked. He sighs to himself, thinking they are from different worlds and won't have anything to do with each other starting tomorrow. The following morning arrives and a heavy stack of books is tied up and left out on the street to be taken away. Fujiwara prays over his discarded book collection, deciding to switch to his PC for his hobbies so he doesn't have to worry about guests snooping again. At school, Shino approaches Fujiwara and announces to everyone nearby that she is returning the clothes she borrowed from him the day before. Shino mentions that she brought some sweets that she made at her workplace for Fujiwara. Fujiwara is shocked when Shino openly thanks him for letting her take a shower at his place as a way to show her gratitude. The surrounding classmates are stunned to hear that Shino took a shower at his house. Fujiwara feels a sense of dread as the classroom fills with loud gossip regarding his relationship with Shino. Fujiwara grips his hand in frustration while rumors continue to spread among the students about her being at his home. Fujiwara realizes he is now standing out in the worst way possible. He runs away while wondering why this is happening to him as other students continue to point him out. Fujiwara returns home and locks his door, feeling exhausted after being the center of attention all day. As he blames Shino for talking so loudly in class, a small piece of paper slips out of the bag she returned. He notices the paper on the floor and looks at it with curiosity. He finds Shino's private contact information on the note but immediately worries that it might be a trap or a scam. Convinced it is a setup, Fujiwara crumples the note and throws it in the trash, deciding to study until his anime starts. He looks at the sweets she gave him and figures they are safe to eat since they have a shop name on them. Fujiwara tries one of the cookies and finds that it is actually delicious. He puts the rest of the cookies aside to eat later while studying and hopes he won't be treated like an outcast at school the next day. Fujiwara walks through the school hallways while girls whisper about him. The situation feels worse as he hears more classmates gossiping about a girl taking a shower at his house. Fujiwara overhears malicious talk about him using hypnosis or blackmail on Shino and just wants to go home. He feels trapped and overwhelmed by the baseless rumors spreading through the school. During a lesson, Shino pokes Fujiwara in the back with a pen while he tries to stay focused. He thinks Shino is plotting to make his life even more miserable for her own amusement. Shino asks why he won't answer her, but he continues to ignore her. He hopes she will get bored if he keeps ignoring her, but the poking continues as time passes. Lunch break finally starts giving him a break from her pestering, though he still feels like everyone is watching him. Fujiwara is startled to overhear Shino confirming to her friends that she used his shower and borrowed his clothes. Shino clarifies to her friends that she doesn't necessarily have a type, she just thought he was a kind boy. She tells her friends about the incident with the gutter and how Fujiwara invited her to his place. She explains that she followed him because she could tell he had no ulterior motives and he didn't try anything weird. Shino insists that Fujiwara is kind while her friends suggest he might just be a wimp as Fujiwara listens in. Her friends note that Shino usually shuts people down instantly and ask if she has ever actually dated anyone before. Shino admits to her friends that she is not good with guys, making them think she is acting like a maiden. Fujiwara shouts that he is not doing anything when another student asks him what is going on. The poking resumes as soon as afternoon classes start. Fujiwara begins to think that Shino might not be a bad person after all, but he remains convinced that they should not get involved with each other. The poking continues through the next day and the day after that, leaving Fujiwara in a state of silent frustration. Fujiwara finally snaps and whirls around to confront Shino, telling her that he has had enough of her pestering. Shino stares back at him with a blushing and somber expression that immediately catches Fujiwara off guard. Fujiwara asks why she is making that face, and Shino tells him she has been waiting for him to say something. He is confused and asks what he was supposed to be waiting for. Shino turns away from him with an annoyed huff. Shino mumbles that she put a note in the bag, and Fujiwara wonders if he just heard her say something. From that moment on, the poking stops completely and the constant stares from the other students finally end. Fujiwara is able to return to his normal life, but he is plagued by a strange heavy feeling in his chest that he cannot explain. As he walks home, Fujiwara wonders about the expression Shino made and tries to convince himself that everything turned out fine. He loudly resolves to just pretend that he did not see anything and forget the whole ordeal. Fujiwara holds his head and insists to himself that everything is truly back to normal now. He looks up at the gloomy sky and realizes that it is about to rain. Back at home, Fujiwara watches a news report about an approaching typhoon while heavy rain pours outside and train services are suspended. The doorbell rings, interrupting Fujiwara while he sits at his table. He checks the clock and sees it is past 9 in the evening. He wonders who would be visiting at this hour, ruling out a delivery or religious recruiters. Fujiwara feels nervous about the late-night visitor as the doorbell continues to ring. He decides he has to answer it. He checks the intercom monitor and sees a wet Shino Yuazaki standing outside. Fujiwara jumps back in surprise as Shino calls out to him through the speaker. He rushes to the door, wondering what she is doing there so late in the storm. He opens it, and she apologizes for showing up at this time. Shino asks if she can stay the night, leaving Fujiwara speechless and flustered. Shino lets out a loud sneeze and continues to sniffle from the cold rain. Fujiwara hands her a towel to dry off. She thanks him as she takes it. He tells her he is going to prepare a bath for her, and Shino is shocked by his offer. The water heater panel dings to signal that the bath is ready as Fujiwara looks on. Shino calls him a lifesaver, and Fujiwara hands her a change of clothes while pointing her toward the bathroom. He shoves her into the room, insisting she can't stay in her wet uniform, and slams the door before letting out a tired sigh. From behind the door, Shino complains about him being rough and tells him he needs to be a gentleman to be popular, but he retorts that he doesn't care about being popular. Shino mutters through the door that he has no sweet side, though she adds that he doesn't seem like the type to do anything inappropriate. Fujiwara remains silent in response. Shino mumbles to herself that she is a little curious about him. Fujiwara asks if she is muttering because she is unhappy, but she denies it with a smile. He tells her to hurry into the bath before she catches a cold. Fujiwara sighs and turns away as she heads into the bathroom, wondering what is going on with her. He swallows nervously as he thinks about the typical peeping scenarios found in manga and light novels. He lets out a sigh, telling himself those moments are just fiction, and remembers her mentioning that she isn't good with guys. Fujiwara recalls how standoffish she was at first and notes that she only started talking to him after he offered his shower. He watches the rain from his window, noting it has become much heavier, and feels relieved to be home. He checks the clock and sees it is already 10:30, thinking that girls take a long time in the bath. The door finally opens, and Shino walks out, causing a startled Fujiwara to jump. Shino says the bath felt great and sits down right next to Fujiwara on the couch. Fujiwara stammers that she was in the bathroom for quite a long time. Shino is surprised and says she didn't realize it had been that long. Fujiwara mentions he usually finishes in 10 minutes, making Shino wonder if that is just how guys are. Shino tells him there is something she has been meaning to ask. Fujiwara questions if it is truly all right for her to stay over, acknowledging that it is too far for her to walk home in the storm. He asks if her parents are okay with her staying in a house with a guy, but she reveals she told them she is at a female friend's place, leaving him shocked. Shino finds Fujiwara's replies interesting and claims her parents trust her because she never lies, though Fujiwara remains skeptical of the situation. Fujiwara wonders why she didn't just find a female friend in the area to stay with instead of coming specifically to his apartment. Shino explains that dropping in on a friend unannounced would be rude, leading Fujiwara to ask why it was okay to impose on him instead. A blushing Shino admits his house was simply the first place that came to mind, which leaves Fujiwara speechless. Fujiwara tells Shino he envies her ability to act on her impulses, causing her to get embarrassed, and insist it was a compliment. Fujiwara points out her wet uniform will smell if left alone, noting that nearby laundry shops are likely closed due to the storm. Shino asks to borrow some laundry detergent and a bucket so she can wash the clothes herself, surprising Fujiwara. Shino gets to work hand-washing her school uniform in a bucket of water. Fujiwara expresses surprise that she knows housework despite her appearance, and Shino asks if he has ever bothered to check a warning tag. She points out the hand-wash symbol on her uniform and tells him that assuming Jairus can't do housework is just a stereotype. Fujiwara immediately apologizes for his assumptions, and Shino laughs at how quickly he gave in. Shino brings up the topic of nails while Fujiwara looks on with a blank expression. She shows him her plain nails, and Fujiwara admits he doesn't see the connection to the task at hand. As she wrings out her wet clothes, Shino explains that flashy long nails are impractical for domestic work, even if some girls manage it. Shino reveals she helps with chores and her little sister because her family isn't wealthy, and she keeps her nails plain for her food service job at a cafe. Fujiwara tells Shino that hearing her talk about her life really changes how he sees her, and he now thinks she has her act together. Shino smiles brightly and says that talking to him makes things way more fun before thanking him again. Fujiwara reflects on how he pushed Shino away because he thought they were from different worlds when she probably just wanted to chat normally like they are doing now. Fujiwara offers to help Shino with the laundry, but he notices her making a strange face and asks if her stomach hurts. Shino frantically shakes her head and waves her hands, shouting in surprise at his offer. She blushes intensely and tells him to stop insisting that she can wash the clothes herself and that he doesn't need to be shy or help her. Fujiwara asks if she dislikes him that much, while a mortified Shino hides her face and repeats that she needs to wash the items herself. Shino finally yells out that she is washing her underwear at the same time as her uniform, which leaves Fujiwara completely shocked. Fujiwara gets flustered as he recalls seeing some red fabric in the wash bucket that definitely wasn't part of her school uniform. He apologizes for not realizing the situation and says he will wait elsewhere, while acknowledging to himself that her inner layers were obviously soaked too. Shino walks away to finish her task, while Fujiwara stands in the living room as the typhoon news continues to play. Shino returns to the room and tells him the laundry is done, mentioning that she used the dryer without asking first. She tells him that having a dryer at home is amazing and asks where his own uniform is. Fujiwara points to the corner but suddenly has a panicked realization. Fujiwara starts sweating and suggests hanging the uniform near the air conditioner on dehumidify mode, insisting that it is the best spot to keep it from getting damp. Shino lets out a soft sigh of relief. Shino sits on the couch and mentions that things are a little boring, asking if they have anything fun to do. Fujiwara looks away in silence, surprised by the request. Fujiwara starts rummaging through a cabinet to find something for them to do while Shino cheers. He complains that her request was very sudden. Fujiwara finds an old game console and notes that he originally bought it to play with friends. He brings the console out and Shino laughs at how hilarious and old the game is. As they play the game together, Shino grumbles about an item that steals things from other players and tells Fujiwara not to use it. Shino is confident she will win since she is in the lead while Fujiwara is in third place. Fujiwara asks when he is supposed to use his item and Shino pouts while telling him to just never use it. Fujiwara gets a new item from a treasure chest that swaps the players' positions. Shino is shocked but tells him a comeback will still be tough for him. Fujiwara claims he doesn't really care much about winning or losing, which makes Shino feel relieved. Fujiwara uses the item anyway, saying it would be a waste not to, and Shino screams as the game swaps their positions. Shino repeatedly hits Fujiwara and calls him a liar for using the item after saying he didn't care about the result. Fujiwara argues that he never specifically promised not to use it. Shino continues to hit him and call him an idiot until a loud boom and a buzzing sound cause them both to freeze in place. The room suddenly goes dark, and they realize a power outage has occurred. They sit together in the pitch-black house during the blackout. Shino checks her phone and asks if the power will come back on soon, but Fujiwara thinks it won't happen for a while because of the typhoon. Shino is annoyed because the power went out right when they were in the middle of their game. Fujiwara notes it is already past midnight and says it is time to go to sleep despite the blackout, and Shino agrees. Shino looks at Fujiwara and asks him where exactly she is supposed to sleep. Fujiwara offers her the bed in his room and reassures her that he has already cleared out any inappropriate items. Shino asks where Fujiwara plans to sleep, and he tells her he will stay on the sofa. Shino asks about other futons, but Fujiwara explains his parents' room is used for storage and he has no other options. He insists that letting a girl sleep on a sofa while he takes the bed would be cruel. Fujiwara tells her to just use the bed so he doesn't feel like a bad guy, and Shino giggles as she agrees to his offer. Shino thanks him, but Fujiwara claims he isn't being considerate and argues that she wouldn't have come over to take shelter if he was a different kind of person. Shino tells Fujiwara that he has a way of saying things that makes her feel better. Shino asks for directions to his room since it is pitch black, so Fujiwara turns on his phone's flashlight to show her the way. Shino suddenly squeezes Fujiwara's hand and tells him to lead her to the room. Shino notices his hands are very cold and brings up a saying about cold hands and a warm heart, but Fujiwara calls it a superstition. Shino insists it is not a superstition and asks if he thinks she is kind, while Fujiwara quietly thanks her. Fujiwara tells Shino that she is actually kind, which makes her wonder why he is suddenly thanking her. Shino asks if he realizes that sweet-talking her won't get him anything, but Fujiwara denies that being his intention. Fujiwara explains that he wanted to say thanks because Shino kept treating him like a normal person even though he was acting distant toward her. Fujiwara tells Shino that he thinks she must be the kindest girl in the world. Fujiwara blushes as he offers to show Shino to his room. He tells her to watch her step in the dark as she gives his hand a firm squeeze. Fujiwara asks why her hand is trembling and if she is scared of the dark, but she loudly denies that she is shaking. He points out that the bed is at the back of the room, and Shino quickly tells him good night before slamming the door shut. Fujiwara wonders if he did something wrong when he hears strange flapping and thumping sounds coming from inside the room. He rushes back into the room to ask what's going on, only to find Shino frozen on the bed. Shino pulls the covers over her blushing face and remains silent. Fujiwara decides that everything is fine if there is no actual problem, while Shino stays quiet under the blankets. Fujiwara thinks about watching his late-night anime, but decides it is better to just go to sleep. Shino stays awake under the covers with a heavily blushing face. The next morning, Shino repeatedly bonks Fujiwara on the forehead with a ladle to wake him up. Fujiwara asks if she is a demon for hitting him while he was sleeping, but Shino retorts that it was his fault for not waking up sooner. Fujiwara notices a nice smell and is surprised to see a full breakfast spread waiting on the table. Shino holds the ladle and announces that she has prepared breakfast for him. Shino explains that she went out to the supermarket early in the morning now that the typhoon is over. Fujiwara wonders where she found groceries to make the miso soup. Fujiwara reaches for his wallet to pay for the food, but Shino bonks him on the head with her ladle. Shino asks why he is taking out his wallet and gets annoyed. Fujiwara insists on paying for the groceries and the trouble, but Shino tells him the items didn't even cost much money. Shino tells him to just be honest and say thank you like he did the night before. Fujiwara hesitates for a moment before finally managing to say thanks. Shino gives him a bright smile and says that his response is much better. Shino tells him it is fine as long as he understands, and Fujiwara quietly agrees. They prepare to eat the hot breakfast, and Fujiwara thanks her for the meal. The two of them walk to school together under a clear sky. Shino mentions it is her first time walking to school with a boy, and Fujiwara admits it is his first time walking with a girl. Shino trots ahead and turns back to call out to Fujiwara. She quickly slips a note into his hand and explains that it contains her contact information. She apologizes for the messy handwriting since she wrote it in a hurry. Shino admits that she had put a note in with the borrowed clothes before but assumed he had lost it. Fujiwara is surprised and starts to blush. She tells him firmly not to lose the note this time. Shino says she will be waiting for a message from him. Fujiwara stands in the hallway with a blushing face after she leaves. Shino teases Fujiwara about his face being red, but he covers his eyes and insists it is just a reflection from a puddle. Fujiwara tells Shino it is just her imagination and to drop the subject as they walk past a confused classmate. Shino wears a wide, happy smile while Fujiwara looks away with a heavy blush. Classmates begin to murmur and watch closely as the two of them walk through the school gates together. The school is in an uproar over the pair, with one student screaming in denial while others assume they are a lovey-dovey couple. Shino notices everyone is staring more than usual and overhears talk of magic or hypnosis, while a sweating Fujiwara hears every word of the gossip. Fujiwara decides it is best for them to keep their distance while at school to avoid further trouble. He tells Shino that she should hang out with other girls like usual and promises to message her that night, showing her the note with her contact info. Shino stares at him with wide, sparkling eyes. As Fujiwara walks away, Shino loudly calls out that she will remember his promise and tells him he better keep it. Fujiwara walks off with a red face while Shino waves to her friends and enters the school building. Students wonder if the whole thing was just a misunderstanding as they see Shino with her friends and Fujiwara walking alone in the background. Fujiwara feels like his peaceful life is back, until his homeroom teacher, Kyoko Nakeaka, suddenly calls out to him from a doorway. Nakeaka asks for his help with a task and wonders how he noticed her since she was supposed to be in stealth mode. She notes that he is at the top of his year and in the go-home club, so she expects him to be free to help her with her work. Nakeaka mentions that Fujiwara is academic enough to pass university entrance tests already and asks why he chose to attend their school. Fujiwara explains that he only picked this school because it was the one closest to his apartment. Nakeaka acknowledges his logical choice but warns him that studying too much is bad for his health, which leaves Fujiwara wondering why she even started the conversation. She grabs Fujiwara by his tie and leads him away to help her. They arrive at the school history archive where massive stacks of files and books are piled up on tables. Nakeaka presents the overwhelming amount of documents and asks for his help sorting them, and Fujiwara accepts the task. She tells him she is glad he is helping because the work would have taken forever alone, then changes the subject to his personal life. Nakeaka mentions that the teachers have been talking about him getting friendly with Uezaki lately, which causes Fujiwara to cough into his hand. Fujiwara tries to get back to work, but Nakeaka notes that it is rare to see Uezaki get along with a guy since she usually seems uncomfortable or hostile around men. Nakeaka explains that Uezaki likely puts up a wall as a form of self-defense due to unpleasant experiences in the past. She argues that Uezaki will eventually have to interact with men in society after graduation and tells Fujiwara what she really wants to say. Nakeaka bluntly tells Fujiwara to date, Uezaki, leaving him completely baffled. She claims it would help Uezaki overcome her aversion to men and says it would be good for him too, insisting she isn't joking. Nakeaka points out that Fujiwara always looks lonely and tells him that taking action could turn his dreary school life into a happy one. Fujiwara stares down in silence after hearing her suggestion. Fujiwara tells Nakeaka that he isn't even sure he wants a relationship and asks about Uezaki's own feelings. He insists that he doesn't have romantic feelings for her since they only recently met, but Nakeaka asks if that means he actually hates her. Nakeaka dismisses his logic as inexperienced thinking, arguing that time doesn't matter when it comes to love. She claims that having a clear reason for liking someone is shallow and means it is only for a specific purpose. Nakeaka continues to press her point while Fujiwara feels like her logic is beyond common sense, though he finds himself starting to agree. The teacher tells him to become a wolf and makes a clawing gesture. Later that night, an exhausted Fujiwara returns home and collapses onto his bed. He sits up and takes out his phone, remembering the promise he made that morning to message Shino. He wonders what to say first and finds the button to add her as a friend on the app. Fujiwara decides to stop overthinking and tells himself it is enough if she just sees that he added her. He sends a simple message identifying himself and feels drained by the effort, deciding to take a break. His phone immediately blips with a notification, catching him by surprise. He checks his phone to see if Shino has already replied. Shino responds in less than a minute saying she was waiting, which makes Fujiwara feel pressured to keep the conversation going. Shino sends a flurry of messages thanking him and teasing his simple greeting, leaving Fujiwara panicking at her incredible reply speed. Fujiwara messages Shino to apologize for being slow since he is new to the app, while she replies instantly with slang. He feels like he can't keep up and finds smartphones intimidating. He eventually deciphers her abbreviations but asks her to use standard language. He realizes she is just using common youth shorthand. As the night goes on, Shino starts sending digital stickers. Fujiwara is impressed by her expertise with them while they discuss his lack of plans for the following Sunday. Shino asks if it is okay for her to come to his house, which leaves Fujiwara blushing in shock. She clarifies that she wants to practice making the sweets she prepares at her cafe job. Fujiwara feels more at ease once he knows her reason. Fujiwara tells her he doesn't mind but mentions he has no baking experience. Shino reassures him that it doesn't matter. The chat ends as Shino heads to bed and Fujiwara stretches out to get ready for his late-night anime. Fujiwara reflects on how successfully they communicated thanks to Shino's initiative. During the school week, Shino keeps her distance and hangs out with her friends but continues to look over at Fujiwara while he reads at his desk. Sunday finally arrives and Fujiwara stands among the bustle of the train station platform. The train pulls in and Shino steps out onto the platform as Fujiwara turns to greet her. He waves his hand and calls out to her as she exits the train. Shino apologizes for the wait, but Fujiwara says he just arrived because she messaged him her exact arrival time. Shino giggles and compliments him on how well he has learned to use the messaging app, causing his heart to thump. Shino's expression becomes serious as she apologizes for springing something on him at the last minute. A young girl peeks out from behind Shino as she explains that the child suddenly decided to follow her just as she was leaving the house. Fujiwara is completely stunned and wonders to himself if the little girl is actually Shino's daughter. Fujiwara asks if the girl is her child and Shino reacts with a loud and indignant scream of denial. Shino yells that it is impossible for her to have a child that big and reveals she is a virgin while a mortified Fujiwara begs her to stop talking. Shino reminds him that she mentioned having a little sister before and introduces the girl as her sibling. The little girl bows and introduces herself as Miki. Fujiwara tells her it is nice to meet her and gives his own name. Shino apologizes for bringing Miki along without asking, but Fujiwara tells her it is no problem and she doesn't need to apologize. Fujiwara asks Miki if she came along because she loves her big sister and Miki happily confirms it. Shino looks down at Miki with a silent and skeptical expression. Miki warns Fujiwara that her sister is good at acting innocent, but turns into a mischief maker once she is comfortable with someone, which leaves Fujiwara sweating. Miki asks Shino if she is still angry about the previous day and tells her to calm down, but Shino mumbles that she is still upset. Miki jokes that Shino is actually mad because her undergarments can fit small melons. Shino screams in embarrassment while Fujiwara chokes on his own breath and blushes deeply at the crude joke. Shino yells at Miki for playing with her bra, but Miki retorts that it is her sister's fault for having large breasts. Fujiwara stands nearby in a state of utter shock. Fujiwara watches as the two sisters continue their loud and intense argument right in the middle of the station platform. Miki points out that Shino lied about staying with a female friend, while Fujiwara tries to ignore the conversation. Shino argues that she never specifically said she was staying with a girl. Miki considers whether she should tell their parents about the lie as Shino blushes and says their relationship isn't like that yet. Miki notices that Fujiwara has covered his ears to avoid eavesdropping. Miki agrees to keep the secret, but only if she gets something in return. Shino worries about her own slip of the tongue regarding the nature of their relationship. Miki demands that Shino kiss Fujiwara right in front of her. Fujiwara keeps his ears covered while blushing intensely at the proximity. Shino reacts with total shock and a heavy blush at Miki's bold request. Miki explains that she wants to see a real kiss like the ones on TV and notes it is the first time she has seen her sister act so naturally around a boy. Miki asks if Shino actually likes him and Shino struggles to find a way to deny it. Shino fidgets with her fingers and eventually admits that she probably does have feelings for him. Miki gets excited and whispers that timing is everything and that Shino should take her chance today. Fujiwara glances back and wonders if the two sisters have finally finished their long argument. He notices that Shino is now looking extremely flustered and wonders why her face is so red. Fujiwara suggests they head to his place to end the public embarrassment of talking about undergarments, and Miki enthusiastically agrees. Shino looks down in silence, still completely overwhelmed by her sister's teasing. They arrive at the apartment complex, and Miki is amazed by the size of the building since she is used to the suburbs. Fujiwara clarifies it is an apartment complex. Shino tells Miki to behave and stop staring around, but Fujiwara assures her that the other residents keep to themselves anyway. Shino tells Miki that having bad manners is wrong even if no one is watching, while Miki thinks her sister is surprisingly serious and wonders if the earlier promise is now impossible. Miki runs toward the elevator to reach the apartment quickly, while Shino frantically tells Fujiwara to ignore her sister's talk about a promise. In the kitchen, Fujiwara is impressed by the variety of tools Shino brought to make sweets, and she confirms that she uses them all. Shino asks about an oven, and Fujiwara replies that he is pretty sure his place doesn't have one. Shino points out an unopened box and identifies it as an oven, leaving Fujiwara shocked that he owned one without knowing. Shino realizes Fujiwara doesn't cook, but suddenly gets startled when she notices Miki has disappeared. Shino gets angry at Miki's disappearance while Fujiwara suggests they check different rooms to find her. Fujiwara finds Miki hiding behind the sofa, which startles Shino. Shino calls out to Miki with an intimidating expression, making the little girl think her sister looks scary. Shino scolds Miki for being rude and a hassle while they are guests at Fujiwara's home. Shino starts to cry, worried that Miki's behavior makes her look like a spoiled brat, while Miki ignores her to read and says the two of them should handle the cooking. Shino mumbles to herself and sobs over the possibility that Fujiwara might start hating her. Miki asks for the next volume of a manga, and as Fujiwara offers to go get it, he notices how upset Shino has become. Fujiwara places his hand on Shino's head to comfort her, which catches her completely by surprise. Miki watches them from afar as Fujiwara remarks that he feels full without even eating yet, while Shino remains flustered by his touch. Fujiwara has a sudden realization and blushes. Fujiwara panics because they forgot the ingredients for the sweets, but Shino suggests they go shopping together to pick out flavors he likes. At the shopping mall, Shino whispers to Miki to behave while Fujiwara studies a floor guide. Miki grins and tells Shino that she planned the whole mood, making Shino realize that Miki might have manipulated the head pat situation. Miki claims that Fujiwara almost fell for Shino during the head pat, and tells her sister that now is her chance to strike. Miki instructs Shino to fake an accident and go for a kiss, telling her that momentum is key and not to be scared. Miki asks for game money and says she's going to disappear into the arcade, leaving Shino feeling like her sister is enjoying the situation too much. Miki warns Shino to make up her mind quickly so Fujiwara doesn't get annoyed and start to dislike her. Shino looks down with a heavily blushing face, feeling conflicted. Shino decides that Miki is right and resolves to take action while Fujiwara checks his phone nearby. Shino clenches her fists and makes up her mind to seriously go for it. Fujiwara points out that the baking supplies are upstairs, and Miki says she will wait for them at the arcade. Miki tells Shino to take her time and enjoy herself, but Shino gets annoyed by her sister's sass. Miki points out that the arcade is nearby and sticks her hand out to demand money from Fujiwara. Fujiwara hands Miki a 500 yen coin, and she complains it isn't enough, but he tells her not to be selfish since he isn't made of money. Fujiwara checks if Miki has decided what she wants to buy yet. Miki admits she is still undecided while looking down at her coin. Fujiwara hands Miki more money so she can play longer, noting that they might be stuck there for a while otherwise. Miki is shocked by his generosity and calls him a kind brother. Miki is thrilled to have 1,000 yen and thanks him. She offers to a secret with him as a reward for the extra money. Miki whispers to Fujiwara that Shino is a klutz who often trips on the stairs. She tells him to make sure he is there to catch her sister when it happens. Miki predicts that her sister will have one of these clumsy moments later today. Miki heads off to the arcade while waving goodbye. Shino tells Fujiwara that he shouldn't spoil her because she'll think tantrums work, while Fujiwara is left confused by Miki's parting comment. Shino remarks that she can imagine what he will be like once he is married. Fujiwara argues that kids should just be allowed to play when they are out, so he's letting it slide. Shino tells Fujiwara he will definitely spoil his kids and calls him a kind papa. Fujiwara is visibly flustered by being referred to as a father. Fujiwara admits that as a loner he can't imagine meeting a girl or ever getting married. Shino stares at him as he speaks. Shino points out that people like him still get married. She asks if there might be a girl close to him right now who fits the bill. Fujiwara gets nervous and gives an ambiguous answer about there maybe being a girl or maybe not. Shino asks for clarification on whether there is someone or not. Fujiwara avoids the question by agreeing that his vague answer is exactly what he meant. Fujiwara notes that they have successfully gathered all the ingredients they need. Shino looks thoughtful while holding the shopping bag. Fujiwara observes that the floor indicator hasn't moved and the elevators are packed because it is Sunday. He says they need to go pick up Miki, but the escalators are also full. Shino points toward the stairs as a way to reach the arcade on the second floor. Fujiwara agrees that they have no other choice but to walk up. Fujiwara starts walking down the stairs when Shino suddenly lets out a loud scream behind him. Shino's foot slips, and she shouts that she is going to fall, causing Fujiwara to gasp in surprise as he looks back. Fujiwara yells for Shino to watch out as she plunges forward from the steps toward him. Shino tumbles directly into Fujiwara, sending both of them falling backward onto the floor. The two hit the ground with a heavy thud, leaving Shino pinned on top of Fujiwara. As they land, their lips meet in an accidental kiss on the floor. Miki suddenly appears and says she was waiting for them, causing the shocked pair to jerk away from each other. Miki stands over them and asks if they are okay or if they hit their heads after such a big fall. Shino stares intensely into Fujiwara's eyes with a heavily blushing face. Shino leans down and kisses Fujiwara on the lips a second time. Both are deeply embarrassed as Shino thanks him for catching her, noting that they ended up kissing by accident. Shino points out that kissing is something only couples do, but acknowledges that they have now done it. Shino explains that calling him Fujiwara feels too distant now, so she declares she will call him Sandai from now on. Shino squeezes her eyes shut and confesses her feelings, telling Sandai that she likes him. Sandai is left stunned and blushing as Shino asks him how he feels about her in return. Shino admits she can't help her feelings. Sandai asks why she chose him, and Shino observes that he is too stunned to provide an immediate response. Shino explains that it is hard to put into words, but she simply thinks Sandai is a very nice guy. Sandai suggests she might have just been caught up in the moment, but Shino angrily retorts that it was her first confession and took a lot of courage. Shino notes that she wore flavored lip balm, so the kiss was likely sweet. She asks how it felt to receive her first kiss and confession, and Sandai admits it was indeed sweet. Shino squishes Sandai's face and demands he call her Shino instead of Yuazaki. Sandai lets out a yelp of surprise while Miki drinks from her bottle and watches the scene. Sandai attempts to say Shino's name properly as she pats his head. Shino tells him not to overthink it since she just wanted to be honest, adding that she will give up if he doesn't return her feelings. Shino admits she would probably cry but would accept his rejection because she does not want to be clingy. Sandai listens in silence, looking flustered. The story shifts to a view of the exterior of an apartment building against the sky. A knife slices through a piece of cooked meat on a cutting board. During dinner, Miki whispers her surprise that Shino actually confessed. Shino argues that she was just following Miki's advice about momentum, but Miki clarifies that she only meant that for the kissing. Miki explains that Shino's excessive momentum caused Sandai to completely shut down. Shino worries she made a mistake, but Miki just calls her clueless, prompting Shino to tell her to shut up. Shino wonders if Sandai going blank means he actually has some feelings for her. Miki remarks that it is scary dealing with people who have never been in love. Shino demands to know why she says that while Sandai remains in a dazed state. At the train station, ticket gates, Miki thanks Sandai for seeing her off and says goodbye. Sandai gives a simple acknowledgement. Shino says goodbye to Sandai by his first name before boarding the train with her sister. Once they leave, Sandai sits alone on a station bench in heavy silence. Sandai sits on the station bench, reeling from the realization that Shino actually likes him and that they'd a kiss. Sandai struggles to process how the situation escalated as he clutches his head and groans in confusion. Sandai stamps his feet in a fit of nerves, desperately trying to calm himself down after Shino's unexpected confession. Sandai tries to distract himself by going home to watch anime, but as he checks the time on his phone, he notices a new message. The message is from Shino stating that she will stop texting him until he is ready to respond so he doesn't feel pressured. Sandai feels relieved that he has some time to think things over properly before giving Shino an answer. Back at school, Sandai is aware that Shino's desk is right behind his. He quickly passes a worksheet back to her when asked. Sandai admits to himself that things have been incredibly awkward and he has been avoiding Shino. He wonders if her confession would just vanish if he continued to ignore it. Sandai realizes that ignoring her would be dishonest and suddenly jerks forward in his seat as he reaches a decision. Sandai looks back at Shino and thinks about how he prefers her smile over her sad expression. Sandai stares straight ahead, looking nervous as he prepares himself. Sandai finally understands his own feelings and decides to take action. Sandai acknowledges that being a loner for so long made him run away from difficult decisions, but he finally knows what he wants. Sandai decides to match Shino's bravery and sends her a message from under his desk. Shino's phone begins to buzz right behind him. Shino lets out a gasp in the middle of class as she sees the notification on her phone from Sandai. Sandai looks relieved with a small smile while Shino covers her face, crying tears of joy after reading his message. By the end of September, in his second year of high school, the girl sitting behind Sandai had officially become his girlfriend. The new couple stands together in silence. A group of girls in the hallway gossip about how the two finally look like a real couple. One of the girls is surprised to hear Shino is dating Fujiwara and says she needs to go check on something with him personally. The girls excitedly agree and start planning their next move together. Shino visits Sandai at home after her part-time job and playfully asks him for their usual routine. The two lean in close and look into each other's eyes. Sandai and Shino a kiss. Shino licks her lips and asks if the flavor today is tangerine. Shino notes that she changed her lip gloss and asks Sandai if he preferred the previous strawberry or vanilla flavors over the current one. Sandai says he likes whatever she likes, but Shino gets flustered and insists she wants to use the flavor her boyfriend prefers. Sandai realizes the conversation will go in circles unless he makes a choice while Shino looks at him with sparkling eyes. Sandai finally picks strawberry and Shino happily agrees with his choice. Shino quickly reapplies her lip gloss and gives a thumbs up while Sandai reflects on the sweet and sour scent. A teacher calls out to Fujiwara as he walks through the school hallway. She tells him that he seems to have changed lately and asks if he needs anything. Fujiwara wonders if the change is due to Uezaki while the teacher cheers him on as he leaves. Later that evening, Fujiwara and Uezaki play a video game together. Fujiwara claims he is winning while Uezaki worries about losing. They sit together on a couch focused on the match, and Uezaki begins to look frustrated. Uezaki suddenly leans in and kisses Fujiwara on the cheek to distract him from the game. Caught off guard by the kiss, Fujiwara loses his grip and drops his controller. Uezaki takes advantage of the opening to seize the lead while Fujiwara remains flustered. Uezaki celebrates her victory, and although Fujiwara argues that her move was unfair, she disagrees. As they relax after the game, Fujiwara notes that it is nearly time for Uezaki to catch her train, and she remarks on how quickly their time together passes. Fujiwara asks if she will return the next day, and Uezaki enthusiastically confirms that she will. While walking outside at night, Fujiwara asks if visiting every day after work is difficult for her, but she insists it is the highlight of her day. Uezaki pauses for a moment as she prepares to bring up another subject. She mentions that people at school are starting to notice something which surprises Fujiwara since they avoid talking to each other there. Uezaki explains that their accidental eye contact in the hallways has caused some people to suspect they are in a relationship. Shino asks if people are catching on because she only has eyes for him. Fujiwara points out that many guys have been staring at her lately. Shino jokingly brushes it off with a wink. Shino admits she wants to show off her amazing boyfriend to everyone. Fujiwara blushes at her confession. Fujiwara walks down the street alongside her in silence. Shino nervously asks him if wanting to show him off is a problem. Fujiwara clears his throat and agrees that since they are officially dating, there is no longer a reason to hide their relationship. He warns her that they should still be careful not to act too intimate in front of the class to avoid creating chaos. Shino suggests that telling a few friends would be a better way to let the news spread naturally. She expresses her excitement for the next school day while Fujiwara asks her to keep things under control. The next day at school, Shino says goodbye as she heads off to her part-time job. Fujiwara waves back, telling her he will see her later. Fujiwara hears someone call out his name and turns around to see who it is. A group of 5 girls approaches him in the hallway and asks if he has a moment to talk to them. Fujiwara becomes visibly nervous and stammeringly asks what they want from him. As one of the girls begins to speak, Fujiwara panics, internally worried that they might be against his relationship with Shino. The girls reveal that they heard from Shino that the two are dating and ask for confirmation, noting their own surprise at the news. Fujiwara continues to act defensive and flustered, but the girls tell him there is no need to be so on guard. They explain that they are in a bind and want his help because Shino spoke highly of him as a good person. Fujiwara is taken aback by the sudden request for help. The girls invite Fujiwara to join a dinner party they are holding later that night. They explain that Shino has been turning down their invites lately. They believe that having Shino attend would make the gathering much more exciting. They mention that many guys from other schools and even universities attend these meetups. One girl explains that Shino is incredibly popular outside of their school. She tells Fujiwara that Shino has even turned down multiple offers to become a model or an idol. Fujiwara reflects on this new information about Shino's reputation. The girls whisper to each other, wondering if Shino was attracted to him specifically because he didn't realize how popular she was. They ask Fujiwara if he is able to go with them right away. They admit that male attendance at these events changes based on Shino's presence. They hope that Shino will finally come if Fujiwara is there as well. One of the girls puts her hands together and begs him to help them out. Fujiwara expresses concern, pointing out that Shino is uncomfortable around guys and might not like being at that kind of gathering. He worries that the other guys there might get angry if she shows up with a boyfriend. One girl interrupts, insisting the plan is actually good for everyone involved. She suggests that Fujiwara can use the event to let everyone know Shino is taken. She argues this will force the other guys to pay attention to the girls who are actually single. She explains that this will stop other guys from hitting on Shino, effectively solving two problems at once. Fujiwara starts to find the logic somewhat reasonable. The girls imagine Fujiwara being protective of Shino and telling other guys to stop looking at her. They are convinced this outcome will make Shino happy. The girls suggest that Shino might stay with Fujiwara forever if she heard him claim her as his girl. The thought leaves Fujiwara visibly flustered. Fujiwara is overwhelmed by the idea of seeing Shino at her absolute happiest. The girls decide that Fujiwara looks too plain and needs a complete makeover to look cool for their event. They all reach a unanimous agreement while he reacts with shock. The girls grab Fujiwara by the arms to lead him away. He asks in a panic what they mean by giving him a makeover. They tell Fujiwara that Shino would be even happier if he became a cooler person. Fujiwara wonders if Shino secretly wishes he was manlier or cooler. He eventually gives in and asks the girls to take care of his transformation as they leave the school. They arrive at a beauty parlor where a male stylist greets the group and asks how he can be of service. The girls crowd around Fujiwara and tell the stylist to start by turning him into a hot guy. When Fujiwara tries to offer his own opinion, the girls tell him not to worry and that they will decide his style for him. The stylist apologizes for the commotion as the girls insist that Fujiwara won't know what suits him on his own and should leave it to them. The girls look through a hair catalog and debate between an undercut with shaved sides or a Prince-type mash bob. The suggestions become more extreme, ranging from a wolf cut to a completely shaved head. Fujiwara begins to worry that they are just toying with him. The girls fall silent and stare intently at Fujiwara as he waits nervously for them to make a choice. One of the girls points out that the most important factor is whether the new look will actually make Shino happy. One girl apologizes for getting ahead of themselves. They realize they don't actually know what Shino's specific preferences are. One of the girls points out how Shino would always dodge conversations about her preferred type. Another agrees that as a result, no one really knows what kind of guy she likes. A girl suggests that since Shino picked Fujiwara, she might actually prefer guys who are more on the plain side. She proposes a haircut that looks fresh and cool. Fujiwara goes along with the suggestion, thinking it is the safest choice. The girls agree that anything is better than the extreme options they discussed earlier. The stylist accepts the task. Fujiwara tells the man he is in his care and waits for the work to begin. The stylist drapes a cape over Fujiwara and begins cutting his hair. The girls watch closely and take photos with their phones. The haircut is finished and the stylist asks Fujiwara what he thinks. Fujiwara looks at his new reflection in the mirror, appearing much sharper. The girls are stunned by the transformation and stare at Fujiwara in silence. The stylist explains that he thinned out the hair and gave him a slight undercut to keep him looking like a student while still being refreshing. Fujiwara thanks him for the work. One of the girls snaps a photo of Fujiwara while he wonders if his new look is weird. The stylist tells him his features are well balanced and encourages him to visit again. The girls huddle around the phone to look at the photo, commenting on how Shino probably didn't even know he could look this good. They agree that Shino has great taste in guys. Fujiwara asks if he is free to go, but the girls stop him. They insist on taking him to a shop by the station to buy him new clothes and shoes. With the makeover and new outfit complete the girls' remark on how suddenly attractive he has become. One girl jokingly tells the others to control themselves and not try to steal him from Shino. Fujiwara walks through the city at night feeling nervous and wondering if Shino will like his new appearance. He realizes he needs to get home quickly before Shino arrives. One of the girls stops him and reveals that they just messaged Shino to tell her about the makeover. Fujiwara is shocked by the news. Fujiwara panics, feeling unprepared to see her so soon. The girl mentions that Shino just finished work and should be arriving any second right as they spot her. Shino runs toward the group, panting heavily from her sprint. Fujiwara calls her name as she gets closer. Shino lunges forward and grabs Fujiwara, shouting that he is not allowed to look like that. Fujiwara looks at Shino in confusion and calls out her name. Shino begins aggressively messing up Fujiwara's new hair while repeatedly shouting that he isn't allowed to change. Fujiwara tries to get her to stop. Shino yells at him that he shouldn't look hot because other girls will start swarming around him. Shino turns her anger toward her friends and shouts at them as well. The girls jump back, startled by her intense reaction. She tells the girls they shouldn't give someone else's boyfriend a makeover without permission, asserting that he was already fine. Fujiwara attempts to speak, but Shino stands there silently with an upset expression. Fujiwara watches her nervously, feeling the weight of her jealousy. He scratches his head in confusion as the girls realize Shino's feelings for him are much deeper than they expected. The girls decide that Shino has fallen too deep in love and that their only choice is to run away. The group of girls suddenly bolts away into the night. Fujiwara shouts after them in disbelief. As Fujiwara tries to follow the girls, Shino grabs him by the back of his shirt. He yells at the girls for being irresponsible and leaving him behind. Shino asks him where exactly he thinks he is going. Fujiwara stops and nervously asks her what she means. Shino asks Fujiwara if he was planning on leaving her behind. He stammers that he was just lost and was going to ask the other girls for help. Shino calls him a dork and tells him that he could have simply asked her instead. Fujiwara is caught off guard by her bluntness. With tears in her eyes, Shino reminds him that since he is her boyfriend, he should be confident enough to ask her whenever he is unsure of what to do. She admits she would hate it if he didn't rely on her. Fujiwara offers an apology for his behavior, but Shino tells him there is no need to apologize. Fujiwara asks her what she would like him to do in this situation. Shino pauses and looks down, hesitating for a moment before looking back up at him. Shino asks for a hug, which initially leaves Fujiwara confused. She clarifies that she wants him to hug her right now. Fujiwara finally understands what she is asking for. Fujiwara pulls her into a tight hug. Shino complains that he is going to mess up her hair by holding her that way. Fujiwara quickly apologizes and begins to pull back, saying he will stop. However, Shino tells him not to stop. Shino tearfully insists that she never said he should stop, so he shouldn't. Fujiwara is baffled by her changing requests. Fujiwara realizes how difficult it is to understand Shino's true feelings. Shino prepares to say something else. She strictly warns him that if another girl ever approaches him, he is absolutely not allowed to become friends with her. Fujiwara tries to reassure her that she doesn't need to worry about other girls. He recognizes that his recent actions have made her feel insecure. He explains to Shino that he has always been a loner and isn't popular with girls. Shino argues that there are certainly girls who like loner types, but Fujiwara says he is more concerned about her leaving him in the future. Shino pulls Fujiwara into a tight hug and yells that she would never leave him. Fujiwara closes his eyes and returns her hug with a gentle smile. Standing outside at night, Fujiwara admits he only went along with the group because he thought it would make Shino happy. Shino stares at him with a frown while he mentions that the others even offered to pay for everything. Shino points a finger at his nose and tells him that while she appreciates his feelings, he needs to think more carefully about his choices. She asks him to imagine a scenario where a boy she doesn't know very well takes her away, and she starts having fun. She continues the hypothetical story, describing the boy bragging about paying for her makeover and making her look cuter. Shino asks Fujiwara if he wouldn't be annoyed by that, and he admits the idea definitely makes him unhappy. Shino declares that such behavior is strictly forbidden from now on, and a cowed Fujiwara apologizes. Shino pulls out her phone and announces she won't be attending any more meetups as she starts typing. She calls her friends and immediately shouts that she will never go to another meetup again. Shino rants about her friends toying with people's boyfriends while they laugh off her anger over the phone. She demands they reflect on their behavior while her friends realize that Fujiwara must have told her the truth. When her friends complain about wanting boyfriends of their own, Shino tells them they need to put in the actual effort like she did. Shino blushes as her friends tease her for working so hard to please Fujiwara before she quickly hangs up. Shino tugs on Fujiwara's sleeve and tells him that she wants to reset. Shino closes her eyes and leans forward with a deep blush on her face. Shino and Fujiwara kiss each other in the middle of a busy street as people walk past. The two continue their long kiss while Fujiwara cradles her face and Shino makes soft noises. Shino pulls back in a fluster and asks if normal people kiss for such a long time, making Fujiwara wonder if he overdid it. Fujiwara explains that her breathing sounded cute, so he wanted to keep listening, which causes Shino to yell out in shock. Shino runs off while shouting that she understands his point, leaving Fujiwara to watch her go. Fujiwara reaches out and firmly takes hold of Shino's hand. Fujiwara says he will hold her hand because she was tottering around, and Shino simply agrees. Shino turns around with a wide smile and tells Fujiwara that she loves him. Shino asks if he was surprised by her confession since she meant for it to be a surprise, but Fujiwara claims he wasn't. Fujiwara remarks that he understands why she is popular even outside their school because of how cute she is. Shino is caught off guard by the praise and asks if he is the one feeling insecure now while Fujiwara tries to deny it. Shino announces she thought of a way to let people outside school know they are together and tells him to come along tomorrow after school. The teacher dismisses the class, signaling the end of the school day. Shino grabs Fujiwara by the back of his jacket and loudly announces that school is finally over. Fujiwara reminds her that their relationship is supposed to be a secret and suggests meeting up outside, but Shino asks if he's forgotten the promise they made. Shino tells him to be quiet and pulls him out of the classroom by his hand while he tries to protest. Their classmates and the teacher watch them leave in stunned silence. Classmates discuss how they've seen the two of them looking at each other lately and realize the rumors must be true. One student mentions finding out about them because they liked Shino and felt annoyed by the situation. Students in the hallway watch them go, and a girl complains that there are too many stalkers at the school, while someone else tells her to stop. Two girls chat about how Fujiwara was invisible before but actually seems kind of cool, concluding that Shino caught a good one. Fujiwara blushes as he feels the entire school talking about them behind their backs. Walking away from school hand in hand, Shino notes that the news of their relationship will definitely spread now. Shino smiles and admits she simply couldn't wait any longer because she wants everyone to know she's the one in charge of the relationship. Fujiwara thinks to himself that her upfront attitude is incredibly refreshing. A narrative box wonders if Shino is planning to do the same thing at her workplace now. Shino links arms with Fujiwara and excitedly announces that they have arrived at their destination. The two of them stand in front of a grand 2-story brick building as people walk by on the street. Fujiwara notices a sign for a discount on Ladies' Day and asks Shino if this is where she works, commenting that it looks like a place for girls. Fujiwara whispers that the cafe is an amazing place while they walk past a waitress serving other female customers, and Shino asks for his opinion. Shino explains that she picked this specific part-time job because the target audience is exclusively girls. Shino tells Fujiwara to find a seat and wait for her as she heads toward the staff area, while Fujiwara recalls her, saying she is bad with men. Fujiwara apologizes as he navigates the crowded cafe to find a seat, realizing Shino has already disappeared behind the door. Fujiwara sits down alone at a table and feels quite nervous. Fujiwara stares at the door marked for staff, only noticing several small holes in it. Behind the door, Shino's coworkers gossip about whether Fujiwara is her boyfriend, calling his presence faint and characterless. The coworker with the twirly hair gets defensive when the others make fun of her hairstyle. The vice manager interrupts the gossip and remarks that Shino is earnest, so it is not surprising she chose a boy like him. The vice manager orders one of the girls to bring Fujiwara a drink, and they continue to tease the coworker with the twirly hair. Fujiwara blushes as he hears muffled voices coming from behind the door. Fujiwara assumes that the conversation he can hear is probably related to him. The waitress with the twirly hair approaches him with a drink, even though Fujiwara protests that he hasn't ordered anything yet. The waitress holds her tray up to her face and shyly asks if he is Shino's boyfriend. Fujiwara confirms his identity and asks about the food. The waitress explains it is a special shop service that provides free treats for the waitress's boyfriends. The waitress screams in a fluster, worried that Shino will get angry if she oversteps her boundaries. She quickly dashes away after telling Fujiwara to enjoy his tea and cake. Fujiwara gratefully accepts the food and finds it delicious just as Shino walks up to him. Shino presents herself in her full waitress uniform and asks him for his opinion on how she looks. Fujiwara blushes and tells her she looks great, which makes Shino very happy. Shino notices her curious co-workers watching from a distance and beckons them over. Shino clears her throat to get everyone's attention for an announcement. Shino introduces Fujiwara as her boyfriend to the group, and the girls immediately start asking invasive questions about their dating life. Fujiwara is completely overwhelmed and wonders what is going on as the girls crowd him. Shino tells everyone to calm down while the co-workers ask who confessed first, and Fujiwara begs for help. Shino decides to explain and admits that she was the one who fell in love first. The other girls are impressed and ask if she was the one on the attack, making Shino look quite proud. Shino explains that she had to maneuver Fujiwara into confessing because boys can be timid, while another co-worker admires her courage. The vice manager acknowledges Shino's feelings and tells Fujiwara that he should stay humble despite being the one confessed to. The vice manager tells Fujiwara that the person who is confessed to also has responsibilities and expects him to devote himself to Shino. Shino asks what the responsibilities of the person who made the confession are. The vice manager glares at another waitress for her teasing, while Shino tells Fujiwara that her shift is about to start and waves him off. Fujiwara notices the cafe is getting busier and thinks he should head home before he becomes a nuisance. He looks at the empty teacup and plate on his table. He wants to let Shino know he is leaving but realizes he hasn't seen her. He approaches a waitress to try and pass on a message. The waitress informs him that Shino is actually almost finished with her shift and asks him to wait a bit longer, which catches Fujiwara by surprise. Shino suddenly reappears in her school uniform, flashing a peace sign and excitedly suggesting they head home together. She tells him that there is a sight they can only see at this specific time and insists that they go see it together right away. As they walk through the city, Fujiwara asks if it's really okay for her to leave so early. Shino explains that the vice manager specifically told her to spend the rest of the day with him. Shino mentions that she got a bit of a scolding too. She explains that the special menu was actually designed to give boyfriends a way to kill time while they waited for their girlfriends to finish work. Fujiwara tells her that he will make sure to come and pick her up near the end of her shifts from now on. Shino stops and looks at him with wide, sparkling eyes, asking him if he is really serious about picking her up. She joyfully thanks him and hugs his arm tightly as they continue walking. Fujiwara blushes and hides his face with his hand while asking what kind of place she wanted to visit. Shino says she heard the leaves are turning red at the memorial park and thinks it's a must-do activity for a fall date. Fujiwara tells her the park is close by. Fujiwara points the way to the park and offers to be her guide. Shino claps her hands in excitement, looking forward to seeing the autumn leaves. Shino twirls through the park and exclaims how pretty the falling autumn leaves are. The street lamps flicker on as the sky darkens, and Fujiwara notes that it has suddenly gotten quite late. Shino admires the red leaves glowing under the lamplights, and both agree that their trip to the park was worth it. Shino yawns and rubs her eyes, smearing her makeup and letting Fujiwara see just how exhausted she has become. Fujiwara tells Shino to hop on his back so he can give her a piggyback ride to the station. He lifts Shino up and assures her that she is not too heavy when she expresses concern about his effort. Shino apologizes for making him carry her, but Fujiwara insists that he doesn't mind the extra work. Fujiwara encourages Shino to get some sleep on his back and promises to wake her up when they arrive. Once they reach the platform, Fujiwara says goodbye, but Shino stops him to ask for a goodbye kiss. They kiss at the station just as an announcement for the arriving train echoes through the area. After pulling away, Fujiwara prepares to point something out to Shino. Fujiwara points out a smudge on her eyelid, sending Shino into a panic as she realizes her eyeliner is completely out of place. Shino hides her face in embarrassment and tells him to look away while Fujiwara explains that her rubbing her eyes caused the mess. Fujiwara watches her and thinks about how cute she is even without makeup and how much he appreciates her effort to look good for him. Fujiwara hopes Shino didn't notice his racing heart during the ride and reflects on the intimate physical contact they do as he walks home. Fujiwara dries his hair after a bath while watching a TV program about gifting loved ones for winter. He decides he wants to give Shino a Christmas present. He realizes there is still some time before Christmas and starts thinking about what kind of gift would be best for her. At school, Fujiwara and Shino walk through the hallway together while their classmates stare at them following the news of their relationship. Shino smiles widely and notes that they have become the center of attention at school. Shino links arms with Fujiwara and expresses her joy at being able to walk openly with him despite his slight embarrassment over the attention they are drawing. Shino beams and says she is proud to show everyone that Fujiwara is her boyfriend. Fujiwara blushes as he looks at her, taken aback by her open affection. He thinks about how he never expected a girl to love him this much, while Shino tells him she has no intention of toning down her public displays of affection. A narrative box appears over the school building stating that Fujiwara really cannot afford to mess up Shino's Christmas present. On Sunday, Fujiwara scrolls through his phone for gift ideas, but finds the conflicting advice on the internet completely unhelpful. He clutches his head in frustration, feeling lost even after spending several days researching potential gifts. As he worries about running out of time, his doorbell suddenly rings, interrupting his thoughts. Fujiwara checks his intercom monitor and is shocked to see a young girl named Miki calling for him. After letting her in, Fujiwara asks if she traveled alone on the trains, and Miki confirms she had no trouble getting there by herself. Miki happily thanks Fujiwara when he hands her a carton of juice to drink. Fujiwara asks Miki why she came over. She explains that Shino is busy at work, so she decided to visit and see what he was doing. Miki says she just came to play for a while, but her attention is quickly drawn to Fujiwara's phone. Miki looks at the screen and asks if he is searching for a present for Shino. Fujiwara admits that he is. Miki guesses that he is totally lost regarding what kind of gift to pick, which visibly startles Fujiwara. Miki declares that it's finally her time to shine and clenches her fist with confidence. Miki offers to tell him what would make Shino happy, and a relieved Fujiwara enthusiastically accepts her help. Miki explains that it would be easier to show him at a shop than to use words, and Fujiwara agrees that her plan makes sense. Miki tells him that she needs to check out the new products in person and holds her hand out toward him. Fujiwara is confused by the hand gesture until Miki points out that her information isn't going to be free. Miki gives him a sparkly-eyed look as Fujiwara realizes he is being charged an information fee. Fujiwara places a 500 yen coin in her hand and tells her to keep this a secret so Shino doesn't get angry at him. Fujiwara apologizes for not being wealthy while Miki decides to her knowledge because she's a good kid. Miki clasps her hands together and asks for an additional bonus if the present turns out to be a hit with Shino. Miki continues to plead for the extra reward while Fujiwara looks on with a nervous expression. Fujiwara agrees to her request as long as the gift is a success, leading Miki to flash a mischievous grin. Fujiwara watches Miki walk away and wonders if his judgment is failing him as he imagines a future where men become her lapdogs. Miki suggests heading to the shopping mall they visited recently to find a specific store branch. Fujiwara agrees and follows her through the busy crowds of the mall. Miki excitedly announces that they have finally arrived at the shop she wanted to check out. Miki points toward a display of lingerie and suggests picking a present there while Fujiwara stops at the entrance in shock. Stands near the entrance blushing as he calls out to her. Miki turns back to him and asks if he really wants to buy a present. Fujiwara hides his face in embarrassment as Miki tells him not to worry because she knows Shino's favorite styles. Miki explains that Shino is picky about her lingerie, but claims she knows her sister's size perfectly, which flusters Fujiwara even more. Miki asks if he wants to see Shino's happy face, prompting Fujiwara to recall her wearing red lingerie during a stayover. Miki physically pushes the protesting Fujiwara into the store. A banner inside the shop advertises new arrivals for the Christmas season. A store clerk approaches the pair, and Miki loudly announces that Fujiwara is there to buy lingerie. The clerk claps her hands and acknowledges the situation after Miki introduces Fujiwara as Shino's boyfriend shopping for a gift. The clerk asks Fujiwara if he knows his girlfriend's usual size, leaving him completely flustered and unable to answer. Miki jumps in to save the situation by holding up a secret notepad where she has recorded all of Shino's exact measurements from her bust to her hips. The clerk takes the notepad and notes that Shino has a very good figure before asking about her favorite colors or materials. Miki explains that Shino prefers soft fabrics and slightly flashy colors, suggesting that cute designs are the best fit for a high school girl. As the clerk leads them toward the recommended section, Miki realizes that Fujiwara has suddenly vanished from her side. She spots him hiding behind a wall a long distance away, watching them from afar with a worried expression. Miki calls him pathetic for running off, but he insists that he cannot possibly answer the clerk's questions in that setting. Miki drags him back and tells him he needs to make the choice himself for it to be a real gift regardless of her help. She holds up a floral lacy set that she thinks would be perfect, causing Fujiwara to immediately imagine Shino wearing it. Miki confirms the size is an F65, which leaves Fujiwara in a state of total shock over the large cup size. While Miki argues that the lingerie is cute, Fujiwara protests that his relationship hasn't reached the stage where such a mature gift would be appropriate. Fujiwara tells Miki to find something more normal instead of picking out pervy items, but she insists her choice is standard. When Miki gets distracted by another display, Fujiwara panics and grabs the first thing he can reach from a nearby rack to suggest a simpler alternative. Miki looks at his choice and realizes it is a very daring skimpy set, assuming this is actually what he considers normal for her sister. Since he finally picked something, Miki decides they will buy it, while Fujiwara realizes too late that he grabbed a random embarrassing item in his rush. The total comes to over 24,000 yen for the lingerie set, which leaves Fujiwara reeling in shock at the high cost. The clerk explains that larger sizes are more complex to produce, but Fujiwara decides that the expense is worth it if it makes Shino happy. Miki declares the shopping mission a success and admits she had a great time helping him pick out the gift as they arrive at the station. Miki stops suddenly and looks up as if she just remembered something important. At the train platform, Fujiwara tells Miki to get home safely and reminds her to keep their shopping trip a secret from her sister to avoid any trouble. Miki signals for Fujiwara to lean down so she can tell him something privately. Instead of speaking, Miki leans in and gives Fujiwara a surprise kiss on the cheek. She explains that the kiss is just a form of insurance, threatening to tell Shino he cheated on her if he ever breaks his promise to her. As Miki leaves, Fujiwara notes that while the sisters have different personalities, they both assert certain boldness. Thinking about his empty wallet and future expenses, Fujiwara realizes it is time to go and pick up Shino from her job. He considers the idea of finding a part-time job to help cover the costs of gifts and dates. He wonders if there is a job that would allow him to be near Shino while he works, just as he arrives at the cafe where she is employed. A waitress welcomes him inside and tells him that Shino is almost finished with her shift, pointing him toward an open seat. Fujiwara enjoys some cake as a special boyfriend perk, while Shino watches him from a distance. Shino's coworker whispers something in her ear, and Shino reacts with an expression of pure, radiant joy. Walking together after her shift, Shino points out a shop to Fujiwara and asks if he was waiting for her for a long time. They come across a sign for a taiyaki stand that humorously claims they are on the verge of becoming famous. Shino wants to try the food, and when Fujiwara suggests posting a photo of it on social media, she admits she quit using those platforms. Shino shows off a taiyaki topped with a large scoop of ice cream and begins to explain her history with social media. She reveals that she used to receive a constant stream of creepy messages and unwanted advances from men that continued even after she blocked them. Fujiwara feels bad for her and wonders if these negative interactions are the reason she generally struggles to deal with men. Shino jokingly asks Fujiwara to feed her the snack as a way to help her recover from those past emotional scars. Fujiwara complies and feeds her a bite of the ice cream, which Shino finds very tasty. Fujiwara notices some ice cream on Shino's nose, so he wipes it off with his finger and licks it, remarking that it tastes good despite looking strange. Shino is left completely stunned and blushing intensely by his sudden, intimate gesture. She tells him that his actions often catch her off guard, specifically mentioning the intense kisses they did recently. Fujiwara asks if he should stop being so forward, but Shino shyly admits that she doesn't actually want him to stop. They continue walking through the city as the conversation shifts toward their plans for the approaching Christmas season. Shino explains that she made a deal at work to take a shift on Christmas Eve so that she could have the entire day of the 25th off. Hiding her face in embarrassment, Shino confesses that she went through the effort of swapping shifts because she wanted to spend the whole day with him. Shino asks if spending the whole day together sounds like a good plan. Sandai confirms that it definitely does. Shino teases him by pointing out that he has no friends or other plans anyway. Sandai reveals that he was already planning for the occasion and has already bought her a gift. Shino is overjoyed at the news and mentions how excited she is for Christmas. She tells him to look forward to the present she will give him as they walk through the city at night. By early November, Shino prepares a bento for him with a heart shape made of pink fish flakes. She explains that she tried to express her feelings through the meal, but her love was so big that the heart shape overflowed. Sandai tells her that he is happy to accept all of her love even if it spills out. Their classmates watch the intimate exchange from a distance, feeling completely overwhelmed by the couple's intense romantic energy. Shino asks him how the tamagoyaki tastes, while their friends gossip about the love-filled lunch and the couple's unique vibe. Sandai says the food is delicious and slightly sweeter than usual, and Shino explains she adjusted the recipe specifically for his taste. Shino looks at him with a shy and happy expression. Sandai thanks her for the daily meals and calls himself a lucky guy, prompting Shino to promise even better bentos while their classmates look on with envy. After school, the bell rings and Shino tells Sandai to wait a moment because she sees something shocking trending on her phone. The class representative stands firmly in the middle of the hallway with his arms crossed, blocking the way. As Shino and Fujiwara try to walk past him while talking about desserts, the class representative cuts them off and demands they wait. Fujiwara and Shino wonder if he is talking to them, noting that they do not have any business with the class rep. The representative explains that he has business with them because he has heard about their relationship, catching Fujiwara off guard. He points down the hall at other students who are busy carrying boxes and supplies, telling the couple to look around. He reminds them that the school festival is only a week away and criticizes them for not participating in the preparations. The class representative continues his lecture with a serious and intense look. Shino explains that she has bad memories of festivals and is busy with her part-time job, while Fujiwara adds that he also has work. Fujiwara states that since participation is optional, he planned to skip it entirely because school festivals are not for loners. The class rep lets the excuse slide for a second before loudly questioning how a loner could have such a beautiful girlfriend, leaving the couple speechless. He informs them that the class is doing a cafe and asks them to participate as much as they can despite their circumstances. The representative suddenly drops to the floor in a deep bow, shouting that, as the class rep, he wants this to be a memorable event for everyone. Remaining on the ground, he emphasizes that the festival is a major event that only happens 3 times during their high school years. He begs them to join since next year will be too busy with exams, and Fujiwara asks Shino if they should participate. The class representative is overcome with joy, shouting that his passionate plea finally got through to them. Shino delivers a sharp kick to the class representative's stomach as he tries to lung at Sandai in his excitement. Shino tells the representative not to cling to someone else's boyfriend, while Sandai ponders the idea of the school festival. Shino suggests that helping from the preparation stage will make for better memories, and Sandai agrees that everything is fun with her. Sandai chuckles and says he can start helping the following day when he does not have work. Shino accuses Sandai of being a liar when he claims nothing is on his mind, even though he was secretly thinking about how much he will enjoy the festival with her. The class representative is moved to tears of joy while Shino commits to participating properly and tells Sandai not to overdo it. As they walk through the hallway the next day, Sandai realizes he is actually looking forward to the event, while Shino suggests they find a task to do together. When they offer to help the next day, their male classmates tell them that everything is on track and they should just leave. Their female classmates also decline the offer, explaining that they do not want to intrude on the couple's time together. Shino insists they just want to help out normally, but Sandai notices that the class finds their romantic atmosphere awkward. Shino is confused when a classmate asks if she would wear a revealing outfit to serve customers on the day of the festival. Shino refuses, stating she can only wear revealing things in front of Sandai, which leaves her classmate stunned. Their classmate teases them about their relationship being unusual and asks Sandai what Shino wears when they are alone, making him blush. Sandai imagines Shino in a skimpy bunny outfit serving drinks and immediately shouts his disapproval. The classmates leave to look at other costumes while Sandai argues that such outfits are against school rules and Shino defers to her boyfriend's opinion. Fujiwara and Shino sit together on the school stairs feeling dejected that they could not find any way to help with the festival. The class representative suddenly looms over them from behind, catching them by surprise. He tells them he is glad they want to participate, but teases them for just going around showing off how close they are. Fujiwara insists that they are just acting naturally, which visibly irritates the class representative. The representative explains that a student is struggling to practice dishes for the cafe and asks Shino to help out since she is good at cooking. He brushes off Shino's hesitation and leaves to handle his own duties, telling them the person is in the cooking practice room. Fujiwara remarks that the representative is surprisingly caring, though Shino considers it meddling since they were planning to go home. They decide to follow the representative's suggestion and head down the hallway toward the cooking practice room. They peer through the door and see their classmate Takasego Mihiro looking exhausted while working alone. Fujiwara asks if Shino knows the girl and Shino confirms she remembers the names of all her classmates. They watch as Takasego works with various colorful doughs appearing to be in the middle of making cookies. As they observe her adding food coloring, Takasego accidentally gets her hand stuck in a cookie cutter and cries out in pain. Shino decides to stop watching and slides the door open to announce their arrival, giving Takasego a major fright. A terrified Takasego hides behind a counter while Shino reassures her and explains that the class representative sent them to help. Shino introduces herself and offers her assistance, stating that she is decent at baking and ready to help out. Takasego is surprised to hear that the class representative Shihuin was the one who sent them. Sandai and Shino find the full name unfamiliar and repeat it back in confusion. Sandai whispers that it sounds like an impressive noble surname while Takasego remains hesitant. Takasego fixates on the fact that the representative specifically ordered them to assist her. She becomes extremely flustered and blushes, overwhelmed by the thought of the representative caring enough to help her. After Takasego thanks them, Sandai tries to downplay the idea of being ordered while Shino agrees to look at the cookies. Takasego presents a tray of cookies she believes she made well, though Sandai is immediately unsettled by the strange aura they emit. The cookies are a collection of misshapen, brightly colored lumps that leave Shino struggling to find a compliment. Shino suggests that colorful treats are common abroad to stay positive, but Takasego insists they need to taste them to truly judge. Shino takes a bite and immediately doubles over in pain, making Sandai shout her name in terror. A guilty Takasego apologizes for her terrible cooking, while Sandai frantically checks on his girlfriend. Shino describes the cookies as life-threateningly dangerous and encourages Sandai to try one to understand the severity. Sandai ignores Takasego's last-minute warning and takes a bite, experiencing a physical shock from the horrific flavor. Sandai begins foaming at the mouth as the toxic taste of the cookie completely overwhelms his senses. The traumatized couple declares that the cookies are industrial waste and would cause a massive scandal if served at the festival. Takasego falls into a quiet, somber silence. She apologizes, explaining that the rest of the cooking team is doing fine, but she is the only one struggling and has been practicing by herself. Takasego mentions that even Shihuin collapsed after trying her cookies, but still encouraged her to keep trying, making Sandai realize the class rep simply pawned the problem off on them. She looks away sadly and wonders aloud if she will ever be capable of making proper sweets. Shino confidently steps in and promises to teach her properly, revealing that she is actually very skilled at making desserts. Takasego begins to cry with relief while Shino reassures her that they will find her mistakes and fix them one by one. Takasego agrees to start from scratch and prepare to make them again, holding up a tube of purple substance that immediately worries the couple. Shino frantically stops her when she realizes Takasego is about to use actual paint for coloring, while Sandai and Shino look completely drained by her lack of common sense. Shino explains that food-grade coloring is required for edible items, but Takasego holds up a bottle of toilet cleaner and asks if that is necessary instead. Takasego argues that toilet cleaner has strong sterilizing power to prevent bacteria and food poisoning, but a horrified Shino tells her it is super dangerous and to put it away. Shino says that washing hands and the baking process will handle the hygiene, but Takasego then suggests adding the contents of disposable hand warmers to keep the food warm from the core. Sandai watches in shock, realizing that while her methods are disastrous, Takasago is genuinely trying her best in her own bizarre way. Knowing he is a total amateur compared to Shino's cooking skills, Sandai decides to just sit back and cheer quietly from the sidelines. Shino sighs at the magnitude of the task, but remains determined to help her classmate succeed. After a significant amount of effort, Shino and Takasago finally finish the new batch as the sun begins to set outside. Shino holds up one of the newly baked treats and asks Sandai to taste it, while Takasago looks on. Sandai looks terrified after the previous disaster, but Shino insists he open his mouth so she can feed him. Sandai's body shakes with trauma, but Shino tells him to trust her. Sandai finally gives in and takes a bite of the dessert. He realizes it actually tastes good, and Shino explains to Takasago that sticking to the recipe avoids all issues. Takasago is ecstatic that she made something edible, and she promises Shino that she won't add any more original twists. Noting that it is getting dark, Shino tells Takasago they should head home and says goodbye. Takasago watches them leave and wonders if the class representative will praise her for her hard work. She thinks about how the president's eccentric kindness is exactly what makes him so appealing to her. As they walk through the school, Shino notices Sandai staring and asks him what is up. Sandai blushes and admits that he suddenly feels like kissing her. Shino is happy to comply, closing her eyes and puckering her lips as she leans toward him. Sandai does a quick scan of the hallway to ensure they are alone before moving in. They an intimate kiss in the middle of the empty corridor. Sandai is suddenly jolted by a startling noise nearby. Shino pulls back from the kiss and notices that Sandai's heart is beating incredibly fast, telling him she understands the feeling. She confesses that her own heart pounds whenever they kiss, and her entire body feels warm inside. Shino eagerly offers him another kiss and leans in, but Sandai suddenly freezes when he hears the sound of footsteps approaching in the hallway. Sandai panics and thinks they are caught as a girl in a lab coat carrying a flashlight turns the corner. The girl scans the corridor with her light and continues walking past them without ever noticing their presence. The flashlight clicks off in the distance, and Sandai finally lets out a breath of relief while still holding onto Shino. Sandai identifies the girl in the lab coat as Nakao Ka and feels grateful they weren't caught, while Shino asks him what is wrong. He admits that kissing at school is a nerve-wracking experience, though Shino reminds him that he was the one who wanted to do it in the first place. Shino agrees they should be more careful, but she shyly admits that the fear of being seen actually makes her heart race even more. The school festival preparations continue into the next day under a bright sky. The class representative approaches Sandai to thank him for his help and asks him to pass a compliment along to Shino for her hard work. Sandai tells him to deliver the message himself, but the representative admits that he is too terrified of Shino to talk to her directly. Sandai remembers Shino kicking the representative earlier and realizes why the guy finds her so intimidating. Sandai waves goodbye to the representative and prepares to leave for the day. As he walks away, Sandai glances over at Takasago and notices a bright and happy change in her expression. Takasago approaches the class representative with a small bag of sweets, explaining that she practiced making more after getting home. She asks him if he would be willing to test them since she learned the proper way from Shino. Takasago looks slightly embarrassed but determined, as she promises the representative that there are absolutely no weird flavors or dangerous ingredients in this batch. The class representative nervously takes a bite of the sweet while Takasago watches him with an intense, hopeful expression. He notes that the color and smell already seem much more normal than before. The representative is genuinely impressed, shouting that it tastes like a normal sweet and is no longer like poison. Takasago realizes he really did think her previous cooking was toxic and feels a bit bashful about it. Fumbling over his words, the representative tries to claim he meant to say the sweets aren't unique anymore, rather than calling them poison. Takasago smiles at his awkward excuse, while Sandai watches from a distance, thinking about how lame the cover-up sounds. Takasago shifts the conversation to the upcoming final exams, promising to cheer for the class representative when the time comes. The class representative gets fired up, declaring that he will definitely take first place in the entire grade this time. He vows that he won't lose to the mysterious top student who usually beats him. Sandai overhears the declaration and notes that the school only reveals the ranks, not the names, leaving the identity of the top student a secret. Shino suggests they celebrate if the representative actually manages to reach the top spot. Takasego cheers enthusiastically for the class representative, fully believing that he can achieve the first-place ranking. Sandai notices Shino looking particularly serious and asks her what is on her mind. She explains that she was just thinking about the upcoming final exams. Shino regains her confidence and claims that exams aren't a problem since she has managed to get through them so far. Sandai wonders where this sudden burst of confidence is coming from. Sandai takes Shino's hands and offers to help her study anything she doesn't understand, admitting he is trying to look cool by showing off his academic skills. Shino blushes and thanks him for the offer. Sandai passes along the class representative's compliment about their hard work from the previous day. Shino sticks her tongue out, saying she doesn't really care about the representative's opinion anyway. Shino expresses her excitement for the school festival tomorrow and looks forward to walking around with Sandai. She also notes with satisfaction that Takasego seems to be making decent progress with her sweets. Shino proudly declares that they have fulfilled their duties for the class, while Sandai gives her all the credit for the success. He then says his goodbyes and heads off to his part-time job as the day comes to an end. Sandai scrolls through job listings on his phone, deciding he needs to find a part-time position soon. He finds an ad for cleaning staff at a new aquarium and thinks the job would be perfect for minimizing social interaction. Despite his nerves, Sandai calls the number to apply, telling himself it is for the sake of making more fun memories. He arrives at the Marukawa Aquarium for his scheduled interview. Inside the building, Sandai spots the sign for the interview room and heads toward the door. He knocks on the door and hopes that the lack of other people around will help calm his nerves. Since no one answers, Sandai decides to sit down on a nearby chair and wait for the interviewer to show up. A girl in a high-necked sweater approaches and greets Sandai as he sits in the hallway. She asks if he is also there for an interview and smiles brightly when she realizes they are in the same situation. She asks to sit next to him while they wait, and Sandai tells her to go ahead since the interviewer has not arrived yet. She introduces herself as Seki Hajime, a second-year student, and Sandai is shocked to hear her refer to herself with a masculine pronoun. Sandai introduces himself as Fujiwara Sandai, and Seki is thrilled to find someone of the same age, though she immediately apologizes for using casual speech. Sandai tells her that casual speech is fine and agrees to drop the honorifics since they are both second-year students. Seki expresses her relief that the first person she met at the interview is the same gender as her. Sandai is left completely stunned by the realization that Seki thinks he is a girl. Sandai asks him to repeat what he just said. Seki explains again that he is glad the first person he met was the same gender as him. Seki asks if something is wrong while Sandai nervously tries to play it off as nothing. Seki leans in to ask if there is something on his face, but Sandai tells him not to get any closer. The interviewer arrives and asks if the two of them are there for the meeting. They sit across from the interviewer, who apologizes for the delay and asks to see their resumes. Sandai pulls his resume out of his pocket, surprising Seki. The interviewer reviews the paperwork and confirms that both high schoolers are applying for the cleaning staff position. She is shocked to discover that Seki is actually a guy and comments on how his cute appearance seems like a waste. The interviewer tells Seki that his looks would be perfect for cosplaying at fan events. Sandai watches his new acquaintance finally confirming the truth about his gender. Seki explains that at his last job he was forced into embarrassing outfits like a girl's china dress to serve customers. He starts crying as he recalls how creepy older men would stare at him while he was dressed up. The interviewer apologizes for bringing up bad memories, but Seki insists it was just a result of his own weak will. The interviewer concludes the session and hires both of them on the spot. The interviewer notes that since nobody usually applies for the cleaning position anyway, she won't need to deliberate. She introduces herself as Kamaki Mika, the 28-year-old deputy manager, and says she will call them later to schedule their training dates. Kamaki Mika smiles and waves as she says she looks forward to working with them. Sandai walks through the hallway thinking about how he somehow passed his very first job interview when Seki calls out to him. Seki reaches out and gives Sandai's sleeve a firm tug. Seki catches up to him and excitedly points out that they both managed to get hired. Seki suggests that they might need to consult each other about work sometimes and asks if they can exchange contact information. Sandai is a bit taken aback, but Seki argues that it is only natural for coworkers to have a way to reach one another. Siki stares at him with an intense and expectant look. Sandai concedes that it makes sense for coordinating shifts and agrees to the exchange, making Siki very happy. Siki immediately asks for his phone number, line ID, and social media handles, while Sandai realizes that his cute appearance is likely what caused his past problems. Sandai tells Siki that he does not actually use that many apps, which leaves the other boy completely shocked. He explains that he is a lonely introvert and has no use for social media, though Siki seems skeptical. Siki insists that he is an introvert as well and begs Sandai to at least install Line since he finds Sandai's claims hard to believe. Siki excitedly suggests they take couple-style selfies together using stickers, leaving Sandai wondering why he is being so pushy. Siki suggests that they should be friends since they met through work. Sandai is surprised by the sudden offer. Sandai realizes that Siki wants to be friends. He thinks that having a familiar face in a new workplace will definitely be a big help. They begin registering each other's contact information. Sandai notes that he won't be taking any couple-style photos with him, though. After the registration works perfectly, Siki enthusiastically says they should get along well. Sandai is a bit overwhelmed by how close he gets. Sandai reflects on the novelty of making a friend and feels a strange, fluttery sensation for the first time. Looking at his phone, Sandai sees that Siki is his first contact saved besides Shino. He decides there is no need to tell her about it. The school festival finally arrives. In the classroom, the class representative is seen having a minor emotional breakdown while Shino prepares for her shift. The festival is packed with people. Sandai notes that he never knew it would be this crowded, attributing it to the large student body. Shino mentions that she participated last year when she had the time playing the role of a monster in a haunted house. She describes how popular she was despite it being a cliché attraction, guessing her makeup was just that good. Sandai wonders what she looked like in costume. Shino says they are working behind the scenes at the cafe today. Sandai thinks that a school beauty like her would draw massive crowds even as a ghost. Inside the class too, a cafe, someone orders scones. Shino gets to work on the preparation. Shino asks Sandai to pass her the honey. He holds up a bottle and asks if he has the right one. Sandai worries the scones will get too sweet as she adds more honey, but Shino explains that flavor changes depending on the flower source. Shino notes that she is using slightly bitter chestnut blossom honey. Sandai realizes that different flowers affecting the taste makes perfect sense. While Sandai hands over the honey, a classmate points out that the word is used as a term of endearment in English and suggests he call Shino by that name. Another student thinks it is a great idea. Shino's eyes widen and sparkle in response to the suggestion. Shino is instantly overcome with embarrassment, hiding her face and shouting about how shameful the idea is. In the middle of the busy kitchen, Shino and Sandai a quiet moment while their classmates focus on seasoning and pouring ingredients. The other students lament their lack of romantic partners, expressing envy towards Sandai for having a girlfriend as cute as Shino. A female classmate listens as someone encourages the group to keep doing their best. The girl in bunny ears wonders about Shiuin-kun's opinion of her, while a flurry of orders for tea, cookies, and macarons starts coming in. Sandai is surprised by the sudden rush of customers and peeks through the curtains to investigate why the cafe has become so popular. He is shocked to find that all the waitresses are now wearing bunny girl outfits to serve the guests. The strategy works perfectly as a crowd of male customers gathers to see the girls in their new getups. Sandai is annoyed by the choice of costumes for a school event and remembers that similar requests had been made to Shino before. A male classmate approaches Sandai with a sign claiming they made an extra one and that his arrival is perfect timing. The sign advertises that cute girls in revealing costumes are currently serving in room 2A. The classmate tells Sandai to walk around the school with the placard to attract even more people, but Sandai flatly refuses to help. Sandai worries that such a blunt sign will get the class in trouble and wonders why his classmate isn't worried about the consequences. Sandai realizes his classmate has completely lost his mind as the boy yells about running the event until the very end. Sandai realizes that no matter what he says, it won't get through to his classmate, so he just sighs in defeat. He figures there is no way around it and decides to just loiter around for a bit with the sign to avoid getting chewed out by the class later. Sandai is deep in thought about how serious the other guy is when someone suddenly shouts his name and demands to know what is with the placard. A woman with long hair and a white coat grabs Sandai's shoulder and angrily questions him about the sign he is carrying. She is furious, reminding him that she gave the class permission to open a cafe and not a cabaret. Sandai is at a loss for words and can only stammer as he faces her intense anger. He tries to explain that he was just told to take a walk with the sign, but she reminds him that outsiders are invited to the festival. She announces that she is suspending the class event because they failed to show proper consideration for the public guests. A sign is taped up stating that the cafe is now closed, which comes as no surprise at all to Sandai. The girls in costume defend themselves, claiming they were just wearing flashy clothes and even received tips from some of the customers. One of the girls insists that they were just running a normal cafe and that only someone with a dirty mind would find their outfits erotic. The woman stares at them blankly for a long moment before telling them to shut up. The boys give sarcastic and lazy apologies, which further enrages Missy Nakayaka as she tells them they clearly crossed a line. She starts packing the costumes into a box while warning everyone that they will be in massive trouble if a single complaint reaches the principal. The teacher announces she is confiscating all the costumes and orders the students to leave and enjoy the rest of the festival elsewhere. The classroom door slides shut, effectively ending their class event. Sandai and Shino stand in the hallway, coming to terms with the fact that their work for the school festival is finished early. As loud cries of despair echo from inside the room, Sandai suggests they go look at other classes, and Shino agrees. The class representative continues to wail in the background about how this was supposed to be the ultimate school festival. Shino and her friend chat about how the class representative likely approved the costumes because he was actually interested in them. The girls responsible for the outfits explain that they were given the okay for bunny and cat costumes, though they neglected to mention they would be the sexy variety. Shino notes that normal cute costumes would have been just as effective, while Sandai figures he should probably go apologize to the representative. Shino's friend comforts the crying class representative, suggesting that even mistakes can lead to something positive. Sandai and Shino walk through the crowded school hallway past various stalls, including a fortune-telling booth. They stop for a compatibility reading where the fortune teller gives them a perfect score and predicts they will get married. The couple continues their date by sharing some chocolate-covered snacks as they walk around. Sandai points out a haunted house, but he is instantly terrified upon entering and ends up clinging to Shino. Eventually, feeling exhausted from all the walking, Shino asks Sandai to give her a piggyback ride. Sandai complies and carries her through the hallway while she happily points out their next destination. Sandai tells Shino that he is going to buy something from the vending machine and asks if there is anything specific she wants to drink. Shino says she is fine, but Sandai insists on doing something boyfriend-ish for a change, since she has been making him lunches lately. Shino agrees and asks for milk tea, so Sandai heads to the machine and makes the purchase. Sandai picks up the bottled drink and prepares to head back to where Shino is waiting. A strange sound coming from a nearby room catches Sandai's attention and makes him stop in his tracks. He peeks inside to find Nakayaka-sensei wearing the confiscated bunny girl costume while looking extremely embarrassed as someone encourages her. The other woman tells the teacher she is still young and should trust her, while Nakayaka-sensei remains hesitant about her age and the outfit. The teacher stands ready as the other woman counts down from 3 while Sandai continues to watch the scene from the doorway. Nakayaka-sensei jumps and shouts a bunny-themed catchphrase while Sandai looks on in absolute shock. The room goes silent as the teacher and her companion realize that Sandai is standing right there at the door. A wave of intense, awkward tension washes over everyone as they stare at each other in stunned silence. Nakayaka-sensei has a breakdown and starts talking like a rabbit, pleading with Sandai to pretend he never saw her. Sandai considers his options and decides to forget what he saw to protect the teacher's dignity instead of using it for blackmail. He quietly closes the door and decides to treat the whole incident as a simple blunder made in a moment of passing fancy. As he walks away, Sandai thinks about calling it, even since Nakayaka-sensei was lenient when she caught him and Shino kissing in the hallway recently. Sandai hands Shino her milk tea and tells her to forget about his shaken expression. When Shino mentions he looks like he saw a ghost, he claims he simply ran into a giant bunny. Shino takes a sip of the drink and finds it to be delicious. Sandai notes that the festival is almost over and brings up the class get-together. Shino remembers hearing about their classmates wanting to go to karaoke. Shino admits she would much rather spend the time alone with Sandai instead. Sandai feels the same way and asks if she wants to head home. Walking home at 10 p.m., Sandai thinks about preparing for school before his anime starts. He is suddenly interrupted by a notification on his phone. Sandai checks a text from an unknown number begging him not to reveal what he saw in the infirmary in exchange for anything he wants. He initially wonders if it is a scam message. He quickly realizes the teacher is contacting him directly about the secret he discovered. Sandai replies that he has no idea what the sender means and didn't see anything at all. He looks at the night sky and reflects on the hectic day as he considers the case closed. On Sunday, Siki waves and calls out to Sandai as they arrive for their part-time job induction course. Sandai greets Siki and asks how she is doing as they prepare for the training session. Siki expresses her anxiety about remembering everything they are about to learn. Sandai stares at her until she asks what is wrong, but he tells her it is nothing. Sandai remarks that it feels like they haven't seen each other in half a year. Siki is annoyed by the comment reminding him that their interview was only a week ago. Sandai makes a cryptic remark about the world being full of mysteries and traps which confuses Siki. She then shifts the conversation to complain that he never texts her despite exchanging contact info. He explains that he simply had no reason to message her, but Siki insists that she felt lonely. Sandai asks if she is trying to tease him with a strange fetish. Siki looks away with a slight blush and quietly tells him that isn't what she meant at all. Sandai explains that his recent history as a loner means he isn't quite sure how social texting works. Siki suggests that it would be nice if he took the initiative and messaged her first. Siki claims that initiating contact would make her feel like she lost a battle, leaving Sandai bewildered by the competition. Their supervisor arrives with a package and commends them for being 15 minutes early for their induction. Siki enthusiastically greets the supervisor with a good morning despite it being past noon. Sandai is momentarily confused by the incorrect time of day for the greeting. Siki explains that greeting coworkers with a good morning regardless of the actual time is a standard practice within the service industry. Sandai acknowledges the explanation even though the logic escapes him. The supervisor presents them with a box of workwear and asks them to change. Sandai looks at the uniform, realizing that his first part-time job is officially beginning. Siki pulls out a uniform and excitedly points out the dolphin illustration printed on the back. Sandai looks at the logo and agrees with her assessment. The supervisor points out the changing area and Siki suggests that she and Sandai should go change together. Sandai becomes visibly flustered by the bold suggestion. Sandai tells her he would much rather use the restroom to change his clothes. Siki persists, demanding to know why they can't just change in the same space. Siki wonders if Sandai hates her, but he clarifies that he simply values his privacy when changing. The supervisor watches the exchange with a smile, amused by their youthful energy. Sandai quickly heads off to change while promising to meet up in a moment. Siki looks dejected as the supervisor asks if she wants to store her belongings in a locker. Sandai returns after swapping his clothes for the work uniform. Siki, who has already changed, says she's going to secure her items in her locker now. Sandai tells her she didn't need to wait around for him, but Siki insists that she genuinely wants the two of them to get along better. Siki turns to Sandai and asks him if he would like to hold hands. Sandai asks if men even do that together, prompting Siki to laugh and admit she was only joking. She tells him he is adorable and claims that such closeness is perfectly normal these days. The supervisor hands them each a manual and explains their upcoming duties. She assures them that the work is straightforward and only requires following the written procedures. The supervisor assigns each person a specific area to look after. She points out a map in their manuals and tells them to focus on getting to know the aquarium today without stressing out. Sandai and Siki both agree. The supervisor tells them to start by picking up any trash they find around the grounds. She instructs them to meet back in the same spot once they are finished. Sandai looks around at the trees, thinking about the task of picking up trash for his training. Sandai begins his work using tongs to collect items like candy wrappers and tissues. He decides that the best approach is to work steadily and carefully, just like how he handles his studies. Having filled a bag, Sandai is surprised by the sheer variety of trash he discovered. He finds the process more interesting than he expected and begins walking back toward the meeting point. Siki complains that Sandai was way too fast. The supervisor notes that it took them a while but explains that the difference in speed is simply due to the typical stamina difference between boys and girls. Sandai points out that he is also a boy, which causes the supervisor to blush. She quickly changes the subject, telling them to move on to separating the trash they collected. The supervisor mentions that cleaning is usually seen as a very plain task. Sandai replies that he actually finds this type of work interesting, which clearly impresses her. The supervisor praises Sandai, predicting he will become a very reliable man and jokingly suggesting she should stake a claim on him now. Sandai immediately stops her, stating that he already has a girlfriend. The supervisor looks skeptical and asks what the girl looks like. Sandai sighs, wondering if he really needs to prove it, and pulls out his phone to show her a photo. Upon seeing Shino's photo on the screen, the supervisor is shocked by how cute she is. She immediately concedes that she stands no chance against a girl like that. Sandai points out the age gap of over 10 years and calls it a crime for an adult to target a student. The supervisor insists she is only 28 and whines about desperately wanting a boyfriend. The supervisor laughs and admits that Sandai is right about her situation. Sandai looks at her with a flat, unimpressed expression. A few minutes later, the supervisor announces that the day's training session is officially finished. The supervisor tells them they will see each other again after the opening day and promises to send out a temporary shift schedule later. Sandai and Siki thank her for her hard work as she waves goodbye. Sandai is relieved the training ended without any issues. Siki agrees that there is a lot to remember, specifically trash separation, and tells him they should both work hard. As Sandai suggests they head home, Siki asks him to wait because she wants to talk about something that happened earlier. Siki asks Sandai directly if he really has a girlfriend. Siki mentions she heard the girl is super cute and demands to see a photo of her. Sandai is startled by her sudden intensity. Siki looks at the photo on Sandai's phone and is impressed, noting that the girl is much cuter than a professional idol. Siki realizes the girl is Uezaki Shino and asks how Sandai knows her. She explains that Shino is popular at her school too and is known for staying off social media, so nobody can get her contact info. Siki explains that Shino avoids social media to prevent getting weird messages, which makes her a rarity to many guys. Sandai is surprised to hear about this. Siki asks how they met, considering Shino's tight guard. Sandai explains that they are in the same class and she sits right behind him. Siki catches a sweet scent and realizes it is the hand cream she just reapplied. She asks if Shino uses the same brand since it is the popular newest product from a famous company. Sandai says it is possible. Siki notes that the cute packaging makes it a common choice for a present. Sandai starts thinking seriously about the idea of giving presents. Sandai asks if it is a popular gift for Christmas or birthdays, and Siki tells him that it is. Sandai asks Siki what she thinks about a girl giving a guy underwear as a gift. Siki admits she would be extremely perplexed by such a gesture. Siki points out that underwear isn't a normal gift and asks Sandai how he would react if Shino gave him something obscene. Sandai agrees that he would probably be confused by her train of thought. Siki says that is essentially the same as giving any other bad gift. Sandai starts to worry about his own gift-giving habits while Siki falls silent. Siki assures Sandai that girls have big hearts and will easily forgive a guy's little quirks if they genuinely like him. She claims girls actually find those mistakes kind of cute. Sandai feels much better after her advice as Siki waves goodbye at the subway entrance. Later that evening, Sandai and Shino walk home together after an exhausting day at the school festival. A sudden cold wind makes Shino shiver. Sandai remarks that winter has finally arrived as she hugs herself for warmth. Shino notices Sandai's preoccupied expression and asks him what is on his mind. Sandai brushes her off with a vague answer, internally stressing over the fact that he still hasn't figured out a gift for her. Shino suddenly wraps her own thick scarf around Sandai's neck to keep him warm. She smiles and asks if he feels warmer now, and Sandai admits the scarf is very warm just as Shino's phone pings with a new message. Shino checks her phone and is surprised to see an unusual direct message from her father asking how she is doing. Sandai tells Shino she should mention him in her reply. Shino laughs and agrees that their relationship will certainly be the main topic of the conversation. Shino teases Sandai about his habit of writing very short texts, reminding him that his first message to her was just his name. She offers to show Sandai the chat history to prove her point, but he flatly refuses. He then begins to wonder how he should actually reply to his own father. Shino advises him to just be natural and say whatever comes to mind first, as those words are usually the most impactful. Sandai drafts a short message to his father explaining that the girl sitting behind him likes him and it looks like he is done for. A few days later, Sandai overthinks a minor typo in the Japanese script of his message before deciding the softer look of the characters was probably better anyway. Sandai offers to pour more tea and Shino thanks him. He notices a closet door is slightly open and offers to close it, but Sandai admits he just forgot to shut it. Shino continues to stare at the gap in the closet, making Sandai feel tense. Shino spots a shopping bag inside and asks what it is causing Sandai to panic. Sandai immediately rushes over to block the door, shouting that she isn't allowed to see what is inside. Shino is startled by his reaction and asks if it is really something he must hide from her. Sandai pleads with her to just ignore it for today. Sandai firmly states that no matter what he wants, give it to her today, and asks her to forget about it. Shino interprets this as a hint and says she is excited for the future. Shino clarifies that she is looking forward to receiving the gift on Christmas instead, while Sandai lets out a forced laugh. Shino comments on how close Christmas is. Sandai remains flustered by the close call. Shino brings up another important event that comes before the holiday. Sandai is confused until he catches on. He realizes she is referring to the upcoming end-of-term tests. Shino looks very embarrassed as she prepares to ask for a favor. She begs Sandai to help her study because she is terrified of getting failing marks. Sandai remains silent, staring at her for a long moment. He reminds her that he offered to help a long time ago and questions why she is asking just 1 week before the exams start. Shino claims she didn't want to be a burden. Sandai thinks about how much time she spends at her part-time job and realizes she simply didn't have time to worry about her grades until now. Sandai thinks about how much material there is to cover for the end-of-term tests. He realizes that since Shino is worried about failing, her academic standing must be quite precarious. He originally wanted 2 weeks to prepare, but decides there is no point in worrying about the time limit now. Shino asks if he is angry with her. Sandai reflects on how she actually remembered his earlier offer to help and sought him out. Sandai tells Shino that he isn't angry and is just trying to formulate a teaching plan. He asks her to wait for a moment while he considers the large amount of material they need to review. Sandai starts to panic, internally realizing that attempting to catch up in just 1 week is incredibly reckless. Shino apologizes for not approaching him much sooner about her grades. Sandai firmly tells her no. He explains that he was the one who told her to rely on him, so he must take full responsibility for his words and see this through to the end. Sandai announces that because their schedule is so tight, they will be spending the entire next week doing nothing but studying. Shino promises to do her part. Shino asks why he is rolling up his textbook like a club. Sandai insists again that he isn't angry or surprised by her situation. Shino acknowledges that she only has 1 week left. Sandai says it is only natural for him to become a strict tutor under these circumstances. Shino cries out that he is definitely acting angry toward her. Sandai laughs and says they should study intensely to avoid any failing marks. Shino shouts that she will try her absolute hardest. The two settle in for a long study session at a small table inside an apartment. They move their study session to a park bench where Sandai uses a basic English textbook to teach Shino from the beginning. Back at school, Shino struggles to remember her lessons while her classmates watch her with curiosity. Rumors spread through the class as students express shock that Shino is actually studying and that Sandai is the one tutoring her. Shino's friends believe that success is impossible for her because she is a fellow remedial student regardless of how much effort Sandai puts in. Even within her circle of friends who struggle with schoolwork, Shino is considered the least academic. Her friends point out that she is unquestionably the dumbest member of their group. Sandai decides to ignore the noisy remarks from the other students. He stays focused on Shino while her friends continue to gossip in the background. Noticing they only have 4 days left, Sandai wonders if there is any way to squeeze in more preparation. He calls out to Shino to discuss a new plan. Sandai informs Shino that he will be walking her home every day starting today. Shino is completely surprised by the sudden suggestion. Shino admits she is happy about the offer but worries it will be a huge burden for him. Sandai dismisses her concerns and says it is perfectly fine. Shino pouts as she thinks about the extra time they will be spending together. Shino reminds Sandai that her house is an hour away by train in a very rural area. She asks him if such a long commute will really be okay with him. Sandai asks if there is some reason that should be a problem. Shino gets flustered and wonders if he realizes just how remote her neighborhood is. Shino realizes Sandai truly doesn't care about the distance and happily places herself in his hands for the upcoming study sessions. A train pulls into the station while Shino looks stressed and mutters about her difficult situation. While they are seated on the train, Shino finally realizes that walking her home was just a tactic to get her to study during the commute. Sandai asks her if she is just now catching on. Shino complains that she thought they were going to have a romantic time, but Sandai prioritizes increasing their quality study hours instead. Sandai enthusiastically claims that studying on the train is the most efficient way to use their time. Shino looks at him with a skeptical expression. Sandai tries to move Shino along to the next page of her notes, but she insists on tackling one more question on the current topic first. Sandai is pleased to see that Shino is actually putting in the effort and studying properly under his strict guidance. Sandai notices that Shino has been furrowing her brows more often during their sessions. He reflects on how their time together has been consumed entirely by studying over the past few days. He figures she must be getting stressed from doing something she isn't used to doing for long periods of time. Sandai tells Shino that if she manages to avoid failing her marks, he is thinking about giving her a reward. Shino is briefly surprised, but then says she is happy for the thought, but doesn't need anything. When Sandai asks if she is sure, she explains that he already goes out of his way to help her, and she doesn't want to hurt his wallet. Sandai tells her not to worry because he is starting a part-time job early next month. Shino is shocked that it's only a few days away and asks why he didn't tell her earlier. He explains that he only just got accepted and simply missed the right timing to bring it up. Shino worries about what will happen to their usual meetups, but Sandai promises to only take shifts that allow their routine to continue. Shino asks for the location of his new job and immediately wants to know if there will be other girls working there. She gives him a sharp, suspicious look as she waits for his answer. Sandai tells her he will be a cleaner at the new aquarium and confirms there will be women there, including the female vice director. He tries to reassure her by saying he won't have to talk to anyone as a cleaner, but Shino immediately asks how old the vice director is. Shino asks if she can visit the aquarium once it opens to see him in his work mode. Sandai warns her that she probably won't find a cleaner's job very interesting. Shino retorts that it doesn't matter if the work is interesting or not, because she just wants to see him. Sandai gets a bit nervous thinking about Shino, who is strong enough to send people flying watching him on his very first day at work. Sandai calculates the timing of their respective shifts and realizes that Shino would never actually be able to visit him at his new job. Sandai tells Shino that he is looking forward to her visit despite his private concerns about the logistical challenges. Shino explains that she is financially stable and promises not to hold back on her request for a reward, though she will ensure it isn't beyond his means. Sandai suggests that they can decide on the reward together once she successfully avoids any failing marks. Shino gleefully expresses her gratitude. Sandai checks their surroundings and notes that the train is almost at their destination. Outside the train window, the scenery shifts to a dark rural expanse of fields and distant dimly lit houses. They step off the train and Shino points out the way to her house, while Sandai recognizes the market district from the window. Shino reveals that her home is a tofu shop, describing it as an old building that only remains open for 3 hours a day. She explains that they prioritize making the tofu and doing deliveries because their remote location doesn't attract many walk-in customers. Shino adds that, while tofu isn't a very profitable item because it is so cheap, everywhere her parents are able to manage the business together. The pair continues their walk through the quiet, darkened streets of the rural neighborhood. Shino explains that her desire to work and cover her own expenses is what motivated her to take on a part-time job. As they approach the residential area, Sandai remembers Shino mentioning her lack of money as the reason for her employment. Sandai and Shino walk closely together down the narrow, empty road leading deeper into the boonies. Sandai wonders aloud if growing up in a tofu shop means she is allowed to eat as much tofu as she wants. Shino admits that while she ate plenty of tofu in the past, she isn't really a fan of it anymore. Sandai asks her if she developed a dislike for it. She explains that she stopped eating it as much after something caught her attention and makes Sandai promise not to laugh before she continues. Shino reveals that there was a rumor claiming eating lots of tofu would make a girl's chest grow significantly larger. She notes that she experienced a lot of growth during her final years of primary school. Sandai reacts with genuine surprise at the mention of the rumor. Shino admits she was looking for any way to stop the process and quit eating tofu entirely after finding that specific rumor on her phone in middle school. She explains that she hated being ogled by boys. Sandai considers that this past could be one of the reasons she is generally uncomfortable around them. Sandai expresses his sympathy for the horrible experiences she had to endure back then. Shino tells him he doesn't need to go out of his way to comfort her because simply having him listen is enough to make her happy. She feels a sense of relief and describes feeling much lighter after finally telling someone her secret. They arrive at her family's tofu shop and Shino mentions that everyone is currently upstairs. Sandai suddenly panics, realizing this flow of events might force him to meet and greet her parents immediately. Sandai calls out to Shino and tells her to wait a minute as his anxiety levels spike. Shino turns back to look at him and asks what is wrong. Sandai nervously asks if he is expected to introduce himself to her parents tonight. He admits he expected the meeting to happen eventually but wasn't ready for it to be so sudden. Shino asks if he didn't have that intention when he walked her all the way home. Sandai argues that it is already late and that greetings should be made during the day. Shino suggests that introducing himself as her boyfriend who was worried about her safety at night should be fine. Shino pauses for a second and tells Sandai to wait as she realizes something. She admits that she actually hasn't told her parents about him, yet leaving Sandai completely stunned by the revelation. Shino decides she needs to steel herself and tell them soon, otherwise she worries Miki might just blurt it out herself. Shino prepares to head inside and call her parents out right then and there, but a panicked Sandai tells her to hold on. Sandai explains that he would much rather do the formal introduction during the day rather than late at night, even though Shino points out he came all this way. Shino eventually sighs and accepts his reasoning, saying that it can't be helped for now. She then asks for their customary goodbye kiss, but Sandai is hesitant about doing it right in front of her house. Shino remains insistent. Sandai gives in and gives her a quick kiss before they part for the night. Shino points out that the kiss was much shorter than usual as Sandai prepares to leave. She laughs and says she was just kidding, apologizing for being a bit too pushy with him. Shino tells him to be careful on his way home as they exchange final goodnights. They wave to each other one last time as Sandai starts his walk back. Sandai is suddenly stopped in his tracks by the sound of loud, mocking laughter echoing from the house. He looks back toward the Uezaki Tofu shop sign, feeling a sudden wave of irritation. He sees a girl peeking through the window and holding back laughter, realizing that their entire goodbye was watched from inside. Sandai walks home feeling embarrassed that Miki caught him. He assumes she laughed because he traveled such a long distance just to see Shino and concludes she is simply that type of person. He reflects on the difference between Shino's family and his own. His parents were constantly working and were rarely home during his childhood, even when they lived abroad. He remembers being left with a local babysitter when he was a toddler. Since they couldn't communicate at all, he spent much of his time alone. Sandai attributes his current lack of communication skills to that isolated upbringing. He decides to stop dwelling on the past and focus entirely on helping Shino pass her upcoming exams. During a tutoring session, Sandai outlines a strategy for the math test. He tells Shino to ignore integrals entirely and focus on getting comfortable with derivatives to maximize her score. He advises her to give up on the English listening section for now. Instead, they will focus on reading comprehension, as she can find many answers directly within the exam text if she understands the questions. Sandai explains that the other subjects just require memorization through flashcards. A classmate notices Shino's intense focus and wonders if Sandai is being an exceptionally harsh teacher. Shino stares at her textbook, trying to recall the meaning of a specific English phrase while she studies. Sandai watches her closely, hoping that his guidance will be enough to help her succeed. He thinks about how much trust Shino has placed in him. While he dislikes being so strict, he believes it is necessary for her future and resolves that they will both give it their all. The day of the exam finally arrives and Shino appears physically and mentally exhausted from her week of intense preparation. Sandai checks on her to see if she is doing all right. She gives a faint, tired response that she is fine. The teacher stands at the front of the classroom telling the students to pass the exam papers back. Several classmates loudly voice their reluctance to start the test. As the papers reach their desks, the room is filled with students panicking. One complains about a nervous stomach, while others lament their lack of study time. The teacher shouts at the class to stop whispering and be quiet, reminding them that the exam session must be conducted in total silence. A student tells the class representative to be quiet because his shouting woke up Nakeaka-sensei. The representative argues that he was only stating the obvious. One girl wonders when the winter break supplementary lessons will start. Shino admits she hopes they aren't on Christmas Eve. Sandai turns around and passes the exam paper back to Shino. Sandai speaks to Shino and she acknowledges him with a quiet response. He tells her to do her best as she gets ready to start. Shino smiles and responds enthusiastically. The exam begins and the entire class starts writing on their answer sheets. Shino looks at her paper with a serious expression and continues to work. A student sitting nearby writes with a high level of intensity. Sandai looks at his test and decides to leave certain questions blank or answer them incorrectly on purpose. He recalls a girl promising to celebrate with Shihuin if he manages to take first place in their year. Sandai thinks that lowering his own rank might help the representative's relationship, so he continues to write down incorrect answers. He figures that lowering his score will also bring down the class average, which could help Shino pass. Sandai knows that his individual score won't change much, but he feels that the thought behind his gesture is important. The next day, the teacher calls for the end of the test and begins collecting the answer sheets from the students. Shino celebrates with relief, shouting that the exams are finally over. Sandai asks how the tests went. Shino tentatively replies that she thinks she did okay. Shino is amazed that the actual questions matched what Sandai taught her. Sandai modestly explains that he simply identified the general trend. Shino asks if Sandai usually speaks haphazardly, but he explains that he only relaxes when there are no problems and gets serious when the situation requires it. Shino gazes at Sandai with affection while her friends watch the two of them and comment on their behavior as a couple. Sandai asks why she was so desperate to avoid failing her grades this time around. Shino explains that the remedial classes are held on the very first day of winter break, though Sandai still doesn't understand the significance. Shino looks at Sandai with a silent, frustrated pout. She reminds him that the first day of winter break falls on December 24th, and Sandai finally realizes why she worked so hard. Shino adds that failing would ruin their plans and affect her work shifts. Sandai notes that she is unexpectedly serious about their time together. Sandai claims his comment was just a passing thought and says they have to wait for the results. Shino stares at him suspiciously. Several days pass at the school. Shino celebrates the news that she barely passed all of her subjects. Her friends are shocked as they ended up failing everything. Sandai praises Shino's improvement and pats her on the head. Her friends feel abandoned since she was usually their partner in remedial classes. The other girls realize that Shino's motivation was to avoid lessons on the 24th and conclude that love is a fearsome motivator. Shihuin lets out a loud shout of triumph while clutching his test results. His classmates are startled by the sudden outburst and wonder what happened to cause such a commotion. Shihuin cries with joy as he realizes he finally took the top rank, and a classmate offers him her congratulations for breaking through his previous limits. Nakeaka-sensei interrupts the celebration to announce that she needs to speak with a specific student privately. The teacher calls out Fujiwara and orders him to meet her in the faculty room after school, much to Shino's concern. Nakeaka-sensei maintains a stern face as she repeats that they need to have a conversation. Shino immediately protests and demands to know what the meeting is about, causing the teacher to question why she is the one reacting so strongly. Shino asks why they can't talk right where they are, but the teacher assures her she isn't planning to scold him. The rest of the class starts whispering about the situation while Sandai feels the pressure of the unwanted attention. Sandai tries to calm Shino down by saying it isn't serious even though he can't discuss it in public, but she remains skeptical about why he needs to go elsewhere. Shino worries that it sounds like an intimate one-on-one interview, but Nakeaka-sensei points out they will be in a room full of other faculty members. Shino warns Sandai to report it if the teacher tries anything strange, and he heads off to the faculty room after agreeing to her request. Once they are alone, Nakeaka-sensei compares Shino's protective behavior to a rabid dog and asks Sandai if he was the one who tutored her into passing. She admits that while teaching is difficult, she appreciates that he helped a struggling student pass, though she has another concern to address. The teacher notes that Sandai clearly tried to lower the class average with his own test answers, but since he still performed exceptionally well, she decides to let it go. Sandai asks why Nakayaka-sensei went to the trouble of calling him to the faculty room if she only wanted to praise him. The teacher clears her throat awkwardly in response. She admits that her previous speech was just a pretext and that she actually has a more sensitive topic to discuss. The teacher brings up the text message she sent after the school festival regarding the bunny suit incident. Sandai realizes exactly what she is talking about. Sandai pretends not to understand, claiming he only remembers their booth getting suspended and then enjoying the rest of the festival with Shino. Nakayaka-sensei is impressed by his discretion and praises him for being able to read the room so well. Sandai takes his leave as the teacher sighs with relief. As Sandai and Shino walk away, the teacher thinks to herself that he is just as stoic as he was 10 years ago and likely doesn't remember her at all. Sandai finds Shino waiting outside and tells her the teacher only wanted to compliment him for his successful tutoring. Shino looks slightly skeptical. Shino suddenly remembers something important and stops to speak with Sandai. She explains that Takasego-chan approached her earlier to ask for Sandai's help. Sandai says he is willing to help out as long as it is something he can actually do. They agree to talk about the details later that evening after Shino finishes her work. Sandai wonders what would motivate the other girl to seek him out. The setting moves to the exterior of the cafe named Blanc. Sandai suspects the favor involves the class representative. Sandai sits inside the cafe drinking tea and notes that he has become very used to the special treatment he receives there as Shino's boyfriend. Takasego-chan arrives at the cafe and gives Sandai a nervous greeting. He invites her to join him and take a seat. She explains that she came to meet him because Shino was the one who called her. Takasego-chan looks around the room and comments on how wonderful the cafe is. Sandai mentions that he got used to the cafe by coming there almost every day to pick Shino up. Takasego is impressed and admits that she felt out of place when she first arrived. Takasego asks if he picks Shino up because she asked or of his own accord. When Sandai says he does it on his own, Takasego becomes jealous of how they have built their relationship. Takasego gets flustered and denies saying anything when Sandai notices her whispering. Sandai brings up the favor he heard about and asks how much she knows. Takasego is surprised that Shino hasn't told him the details yet. Sandai explains they didn't have much time before their shifts, but he says he already has a guess. He asks if the favor is about the class president, which catches Takasego completely off guard. Takasego is shocked and demands to know how he figured it out if he wasn't told yet. Sandai tells her it was just a guess and asks if he's right. Takasego begins to worry that she accidentally gave herself away. Sandai tells her that her feelings were already kind of obvious during the school festival. Sandai decides to wait for Shino to arrive to hear the full details so he doesn't jump to conclusions. Right then, Shino appears and announces she is done with work. Takasego slumps over the table in a state of total despair. Sandai and Shino look at her wondering what happened. Shino asks Sandai if he really already knew that Takasego liked the class president. Sandai says she was easy to read during the festival, but Shino admits she didn't notice at all until Takasego came to her. Sandai calls her thick-headed, but Shino says it's because she isn't interested in anyone but him. Sandai asks how it ended up that the two girls needed his help. Shino confesses that the truth is she doesn't actually know much about boys. Takasego is surprised to hear this. Shino points out that Sandai is her very first boyfriend. Takasego admits that she expected Shino to have a lot more experience. Shino simply tells her no and tries to get the conversation back on track. Shino explains that she isn't exactly close friends with the class president. Takasego asks if it's because their personalities don't match. Shino decided to ask Sandai for help since he is a boy. Takasego agrees the president is a good guy but remembers him getting on Shino's nerves. She asks Shino if the president did something to her. Sandai thinks to himself that the president only wanted to hug him because he was excited. Takasego stands up and offers to apologize on the president's behalf if he caused trouble. Shino tells her not to worry about it as it was just a small difference of opinion. Takasego accepts that answer and sits back down while Shino sips her drink. Shino gets back to the main topic and asks if Takasego wants them to find out what the president likes so she can give him a birthday present. Takasego excitedly confirms that is the case. Takasego says his birthday is on the 15th. and she wants to give him a gift that also celebrates his top grade rankings. Shino points out that the president would likely run away if Takasego asked him directly, and Sandai probably doesn't want to get close to him either. Shino enthusiastically concludes that their only option is to find out the information indirectly. Shino declares that they are going to conduct an investigation. Both Sandai and Takasego are taken aback by the sudden plan. Sandai asks if she is suggesting they tail him or something similar. Shino confirms that is the plan. Takasego realizes that Shino is the type of person who takes action before talking things through. Shino imagines herself as a detective and explains that she needs Sandai's help because she doesn't understand how boys think and might miss important clues. Takasego is hesitant about the idea of an investigation, but Shino asks if tailing someone makes her feel like she's doing something wrong. Sandai silently agrees that it is a bad idea. Shino explains that using the word investigate makes it sound better. Takasego brings up the issue of the president's privacy. Sandai tells Takasego to give up because Shino always goes full force once she makes a decision. Shino is already eager to move forward with the next steps of the investigation. Shino notes that Takasego ultimately decided against playing detective with them. Sandai says it can't be helped as anyone would get cold feet when asked to tail someone. The two of them watch the class president, who is standing alone with a small book in hand, lost in thought. Sandai wonders what the president is reading. Shino suggests it's probably some complicated academic paperback, and Sandai agrees that is likely. Inside the classroom, the president checks the clock and suddenly stands up to leave. Both Shino and Sandai take immediate notice of his departure. Shino whispers for them to go and begins following him. She wonders if he's heading home or if he has somewhere else to be since he was checking the time so carefully. The president stops and looks over his shoulder as if sensing that someone might be behind him. He pauses on a street corner, looking back at the sidewalk he just walked through. Shino and Sandai quickly hide behind a corner and Shino whispers that it was a close call. The president looks around, appearing confused. They watch as the president enters a building. Sandai notes that the place is full of various cram schools, and Shino comments that it looks like it would be very expensive to attend. Sandai suggests waiting in a nearby burger shop until the president is finished. Shino agrees, noting they can watch the entrance from a window seat. They head inside to wait. After some time passes, Shino complains that the president is taking too long. Sandai looks at his phone and realizes it is already past 8 in the evening. Shino wonders if cram school normally takes this long and jokes about him taking a Spartan course despite only being in his second year. Sandai prepares to change the subject. Sandai asks if Shino remembers their talk about a present if he avoided failing grades. Shino says there is no way she would forget, but Sandai reminds her that she originally rejected the idea. Shino becomes flustered but admits she is still thinking of giving him something to celebrate their study session together. Shino recalls that Sandai said a trip to an onsen sounded nice when he visited her house. She asks him if he remembers saying that, but Sandai isn't sure if he did. Sandai calls an inn to make a reservation for 2 adults for one night after the 24th of the month. Shino is completely stunned by his sudden initiative. The worker on the phone mentions a room is available on the 28th. Shino blushes deeply and tells him to accept it. Sandai finishes the call and hangs up. Sandai feels flustered and tries to explain that he just acted on impulse. Shino watches him, her face still very red. Shino is thrilled and asks if it is really all right. Sandai tells her he had already looked into which onsen inns would be nice some time ago. Sandai looks away with a blush and starts to bring up another point. He tells Shino that because they will be spending the night together, he feels it would be rude not to go and greet her parents first. Sandai explains that he wants to visit her house before they leave for the trip. Shino asks if he's pushing himself since he did this so suddenly, but Sandai argues that momentum is key for things like this. Shino smiles and accepts the idea. They check the time on a phone and see it is almost 9 in the evening. At that moment, the class president finally exits the cram school building. They spot the president coming out and prepare to follow him again. The president leads them to a bookstore. Shino is surprised by the choice, but decides they should go inside to figure out what kind of things he is interested in. Inside, they watch as the president reaches for a specific red book on a shelf. Shino is curious about what it could be. Sandai explains that it's a book of past entrance exam questions. Shino is annoyed that he is still focused on studying. She finds a book about how to deepen love through kissing and says she prefers that over study guides. Shino tells Sandai to stay where he is while she goes to the counter to pay for her book. Sandai keeps an eye on the president. The president stands at the counter paying for his book while looking around. Shino hides behind a shelf with her purchase as Sandai looks on nervously. The president looks around the shop with a suspicious expression, thinking that he just heard a voice he recognized. Sandai urgently tells someone to be quiet, noting they are in a critical moment where their cover could be blown. It turns out Takasego is the one who approached them. Sandai is surprised to see her there and asks why she showed up after saying she would wait for their report. Takasego apologizes, explaining she felt guilty leaving the task to them. However, Shihuin-kun is right behind them and realizes they were the ones following him. Shihuin-kun admits he felt strange gazes all day and finally confirmed it was them. Shino and Sandai are caught off guard. Shihuin-kun tells them being tailed isn't pleasant and asks if they were following him. Takasego becomes visibly emotional and tries to address him. Takasego starts to cry and begins talking about her feelings for Shihuin-kun. Takasego shouts through her tears that she just wanted to know more about him. Takasego openly confesses that she likes Shihuin-kun. Takasego crouches down and apologizes profusely. She explains she just wanted to learn his preferences to give him a birthday present. Other people in the bookstore notice Takasego crying and start whispering, wondering if Shihuin-kun is the cause. Shihuin-kun looks around, feeling the pressure of the public gaze. Shihuin-kun takes a deep breath and clears his throat to compose himself before responding. Shihuin-kun asks for clarification on whether her feelings are a romantic interest. Takasego confirms that they are. Shihuin-kun bluntly states that he doesn't understand how girls' hearts work at all. Takasego continues to weep. Shihuin-kun kneels down and explains that he has almost no experience and is ignorant about romance, so he isn't sure how to handle the situation correctly. Takasego looks up through her tears and asks if his response means that he hates her. He admits that he does not have an answer for her yet. He asks Takasego if she is willing to start their relationship as friends. He asks her about her preferences, and she says she wants to give him a present if it is not a nuisance. He tells her it is no trouble and offers to get her a birthday gift in return. He begins to consider what his own preferences for a gift might be. The main couple watches from a distance as Takasego reacts with joy to the news. While walking home at night, they agree that the other two are doing well and decide to leave them be for now. They look forward to seeing the pair again, but he is suddenly startled by a notification on his phone. He is frozen in shock by the message he just received. During a break at work, he tells his coworker that Shino is coming to visit immediately because her shift changed. He explains that Shino is extremely possessive and intimidating toward other women, though his coworker is interested in seeing it for herself. He says he adjusted the schedule specifically to prevent Shino from ever visiting the shop, but his coworker notes that his appearance is easily misunderstood. He slumps over in total despair while his coworker watches him. A dark-haired coworker asks if the girlfriend's jealousy is really that intense. They discuss the girlfriend's reputation for possessiveness and how painful it is to deal with her jealousy. The coworker notes that in the worst case, she might be forced to quit her job out of jealousy. Kamaki-san rallies the group to cooperate so they don't cause any misunderstandings, explaining that losing a diligent worker like Fujiwara-kun would be a huge loss. The group establishes rules to keep a low profile, including minimizing conversation, keeping Kamaki-san in the office, and having Siki move unnoticeably while working in her pair. Kamaki-san gives a satisfied smile while Sandai and Siki look on with some apprehension. Sometime later at the facility, Shinazuka arrives and shouts out in excitement. Shinazuka catches sight of something in the distance and focuses her gaze on it. Shinazuka starts taking multiple photos of Sandai while he works, commenting on how intense he looks in his cleaning clothes. Shinazuka looks at her phone and gets excited over the pictures she just took. Sandai tells Shinazuka to be careful since he is technically working, and she promises to just watch him quietly. Shinazuka points at Siki and asks about the girl in the same work clothes, but Sandai claims his partner is actually a guy. Shinazuka gets closer to Siki and notices a specific scent drifting over from her. Shinazuka confronts Siki about her cute face and asks why she is pretending to be a boy. Siki uses a deep voice to claim she is a guy, explaining away her trendy shampoo scent by saying her sister lets her use it. Sandai wants to step in and help Siki, but he worries that doing so would only make them look more suspicious. Shinazuka asks Siki if she is Sandai's girlfriend, and Siki confirms that she is. Seki tells Shinazuka not to get weirdly close to Sandai and Shinazuka agrees to the request. A co-worker tells the girl that she is jealous of Fujiwara-kun because having such a beautiful girlfriend means he would never look at other women. The girl laughs and asks if she really thinks so while the co-worker apologizes for bothering her while she is working. The girl peeks around a corner to keep an eye on Seki and wonders if he is doing okay. Seki thinks to himself that he might have managed to handle the situation. The girl leans against a railing near the Dolphin Stadium entrance and watches the boy walk away from her. She continues to stare in his direction with a blushing face. The boy looks back over his shoulder at the girl while she watches him from the walkway. He goes back to sweeping the floor with a mop while the girl stands a short distance away. Another woman working at the aquarium walks past and notices the girl watching the boy work. The girl sees the woman's ID badge for Mika Kamaki and gets an annoyed expression upon realizing he has a female coworker. The worker walks away with a strange laugh, leading the girl to think she is a weird and scary person to avoid. An empty table and chairs sit in a workspace area near some boxes and supplies. The other staff members thank the boy and tell him he really saved them by helping get through the day safely. Standing in front of a large fish tank, the girl tells the boy he looked cool while he was working hard in silence. She holds up her phone and tells him he did a good job while he blushes. Shino mentions that her job involves talking to many people and asks Sandai if he has the same experience. She offers to treat him to dinner because she saw something good and asks if that is acceptable. Sandai agrees to go to dinner. As they walk together, Shino asks him about the location of an employee who had been making a strange face earlier. Natsumi informs the students that winter break begins the following day. She tells them to behave themselves and stay out of trouble during the holidays. The scene shifts to a residential street as the story moves into chapter 25. Shino celebrates the arrival of winter break. Sandai notes they have time before her work shift starts and suggests they go to a nearby cafe to relax. While sitting at a table with their drinks, Shino prepares to bring up a specific topic of conversation. Sandai asks Shino if she has been gradually leaving more of her personal belongings at his apartment lately. Shino admits to leaving her things behind. Sandai explains that it was impossible not to notice items like her hair iron and bath products. Sandai tells Shino that leaving her stuff there will not lead to her staying over because he wants to handle their relationship properly. Shino is confused and asks him for his reasoning. Sandai explains that things would become difficult if she lied to her parents to stay with him and they found out. He states his intention to meet her parents before they ever go on a trip together. Shino suggests that lying would be fine, but Sandai disagrees. He expresses his desire for her parents to officially accept him as her boyfriend. Sandai continues by saying he wants their relationship to be one where her parents support them as a couple. Shino asks Sandai if he is being so serious because he is actually considering the possibility of them getting married. Sandai closes his eyes for a moment while he considers Shino's question about marriage. Sandai tells Shino that she is the most important person to him and he wants their relationship to lead to marriage. He explains that he views marriage as the factor that gives a relationship its ultimate form. Shino laughs and tells Sandai that she will take his words for it. Shino says it makes her even happier when Sandai puts his feelings into words. Sandai confirms his sincerity. Shino asks Sandai to repeat his sentiments from time to time so that she will not feel insecure. Sandai confirms he hasn't forgotten about the following day being Christmas Eve. He suggests they spend the whole day together starting from the morning, and Shino says she is looking forward to it as they hold hands. Sandai walks through the city at night and reflects on the fact that Christmas has finally arrived. Sandai thinks about the gift he picked out with Miki-chan and wonders if he will be able to handle giving it to Shino. The sun rises over the city buildings on the following day. Shino greets Sandai in the morning and thanks him for waiting. She asks if he was freezing while he stood outside and he returns her greeting. Shino notices how cold Sandai's hands are and offers to warm them up for him. Sandai mentions that some people view Christmas lights as a waste of electricity, but Shino insists they are glittery and cute. Shino points out a cozy-looking cafe and suggests they go inside for a break since they have been walking for a while. A server welcomes the pair and asks if they are a couple. Shino asks for a table for two while Sandai reflects on how time always flies when he is with her. The server leads them to a table and mentions their special Christmas menu for couples. Sandai looks at the menu and observes that they even have a thorough couple-only discount. Shino mentions she is not very hungry and decides to just order a drink, and Sandai agrees to do the same. Sandai asks Shino if her workplace runs similar promotions, but she says they probably do not since most of their customers are single. A server brings a Christmas limited strawberry milk that comes with a special straw for couples. Sandai admits he did not expect the cafe to lean so heavily into the couple theme. Sandai and Shino lean in close to drink from the D-heart-shaped straw at the same time. Shino stares intensely at Sandai as they both continue to sip their drink. Sandai feels flustered by the close proximity and her direct gaze. Shino breaks away to complain that she is not getting any of the drink because Sandai is sucking too hard. Sandai apologizes and wonders if there is a specific technique for using a couple's straw. Sandai admits he is struggling to find the right balance since it is his first time. Shino tells him to get it right this time as they lean back in for another attempt. Shino tells Sandai about how Miki suddenly decided she wants to keep a cat. She explains that this has put her family in a difficult spot. Shino recounts how she questioned Miki on whether she was actually capable of taking proper care of a pet. Shino predicts that Miki will inevitably get bored and the responsibility for the cat will fall on the rest of the household. Sandai listens and wonders why she is telling him this specific story. Shino says that Miki specifically wants a Persian cat. She distinguishes this from adopting a rescue cat, which she feels would be more understandable. Shino repeats that Miki has no other reason for wanting the cat other than it being fluffy and cute. Sandai admits that he can understand that simple motivation. Sandai notices the cafe is getting crowded and suggests they move on. Shino agrees and they decide to leave the shop. The scene shifts to a large building decorated for the holidays. The narration notes that their Christmas together is just beginning. Sandai and Shino walk through a plaza and stop to look at a giant decorated Christmas tree. The couple poses for a photo in front of the holiday display, both making peace signs for the shot. Sandai and Shino stand near the Christmas tree and chat with a pair of girls who have approached them. The two go to a game center and try their luck at a crane machine. Sandai puts money into the machine as Shino watches him play. Sandai and Shino watch as the claw successfully grabs a stuffed cat in a Santa suit from the crane machine. Shino happily holds the plush toy they won. Sandai smiles as they continue their walk together. The couple visits a bakery to purchase Christmas cakes. Shino looks delighted as she carries the white box while Sandai stands beside her. Sandai suggests they head home to have their cakes and do a house date. Shino agrees excitedly as Sandai mentions he prepared something special for her the day before. At the apartment, Shino crawls under a kotatsu and enjoys the warmth. Sandai laughs at how quickly she made herself comfortable after her earlier comments about Miki-chan. Sandai tells Shino to wait for a moment while he goes to fetch something. Shino remains tucked inside the kotatsu as he leaves her side. Sandai reaches into his bag and slowly unzips it to retrieve a hidden item. Shino looks up with a blush as she waits for Sandai to present her with whatever he is fetching. Shino presents Sandai with a cashmere muffler for Christmas. Sandai wraps it around his neck and tests the feel of the material. Shino explains she bought it because his old one was frayed. Sandai tells her it feels smooth and soft and thanks her for being so thoughtful. Sandai informs Shino that he also has a present for her. He feels nervous and takes a deep breath before moving forward. Sandai says he will go and get the gift, but worries if she will actually be happy with it. Shino tells him that she would love anything he gives her. Sandai hands a bag to Shino with a nervous laugh. Shino is very happy to receive her first ever Christmas present from a boyfriend. Shino looks inside the gift bag and her expression turns to one of confusion and shock. She asks Sandai for an explanation of what the gift is.